In Marvel, I practiced the method of swallowing stars and amazed the Avengers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 177 Clean and Renewable Energy. New York Point Stark Tower. In an office on the top floor, Zuemo sat aside, looking at Tony, who had smashed the office to pieces with a playful look on his face. Tony, it seems a bit inappropriate for you to destroy the company's public property in front of me, the second largest shareholder. Tony struggled to pass a pipe through the big hole in the wall, then removed the armor on his arms and walked towards Zuemo. I called you more than a dozen times to ask you to come here, not to listen to you mocking me. Okay, Zuemo picked up the file on the table in front of him. Then, let me see what you are so anxious to summon me for. He opened the file and looked through it. New sustainable renewable energy. That's right. Based on the information left by my father, I made a device called an arc reactor. Tony snapped his fingers. A virtual map was generated in the air between the two of them. On it was the map of the entire New York Point. He stretched out his hand to enlarge a point on the map. The map focuses on the bottom of the Hudson River next to Manhattan. As long as an enlarged arc reactor is placed underwater and cooled by the bottom of the water, it can supply the electricity needs of the entire New York. How big should it be? Tony was stunned for a moment and spoke hesitantly. About 300 meters in diameter. So its cost is, Zuemo asked directly. About 100 billion. After that, Tony hurriedly explained again. You have to know that this is just a one-time investment. The arc reactor can continue to supply New York with electricity for about 50 years, according to New York's daily electricity consumption of 200 million kWh. We can recover our investment in about 3 or 4 years, and it will be pure profit for the next 50 years. Hearing Tony's explanation, Zuemo smiled and put down the information in his hand. So, the other shareholders of the company do not agree with this plan? Tony nodded. What's the reason? The requirements for materials in giant reactors are too high. There is no way to determine whether the materials can withstand the energy of giant reactors. Okay. Hearing Tony's explanation, Zuemo shook his head. So, you mean to let the company take out 100 billion to do an experiment for you? Believe me, in this case, no one will agree to accompany you in this gamble. However, you can build a small one to try it first. It doesn't need to be too big. It can supply electricity to Stark Group for the time being. Hearing Zuemo's words, Tony sighed in frustration. Okay, I'm already building it. He nodded. Compared to that, I think there is something that you will be more interested in. Zuemo showed a mysterious smile on his face. Then he stretched out his hand and waved. A palm-sized crystal ball with purple lines on the outside. Inside the sphere, a grey figure was rushing left and right, but he couldn't get out of the crystal ball. Looking at the thing in Zuemo's hand, Tony widened his eyes. What is this? A new type of renewable energy. After saying that, Zuemo threw the energy ball in his hand toward the distant wall. Crash. As the sound of glass breaking rang out, a grey figure flew out of it and turned into the size of a person. Only then did Tony see the figure clearly. A woman with grey skin. At this time, the woman's expression was very distorted, and she looked at the two people in the room with hatred. When Tony met the other person's eyes, his hair stood up. He was not unfamiliar with this thing. Although he had never seen it in the real world, he had seen it in movies. Is it the legendary evil spirit? Seeing Zuemo nodded. Tony's expression was instantly replaced by shock. Is there really such a thing in the world? As the two chatted, the evil spirit in the air could no longer help it and let out a sharp roar. The moment the sound rang out, the electronic equipment in the room became a little unstable. Jarvis's voice rang intermittently in the room. Sir, the current in the room seems to be affected by some kind of power. Just as Jarvis finished speaking, the evil spirit had already pounced on Tony. This was an evil spirit that Zuemo had specially captured without any consciousness. It only knew how to harm people and had no normal human consciousness. but it did retain the animal instinct to avoid danger. It did not pounce on Zuemo. Of course, it could also be that it still retained the memory of Zuemo's previous sealing. Tony saw this. He stretched out his hand and waved, and the arm part of the armor flew over and installed on his arm. An energy ray shot towards the evil spirit. The ray went straight through the body of the evil spirit, blasting a hole in its body. But this did not seem to cause any damage to the other party. The other party's forward momentum did not slow down. Seeing this scene, Tony's face changed, and he simply flashed behind Zuemo. He did not forget to complain. You going to let me give up the arc reactor and study this thing instead? Thank you so much, but I'm a scientist and I don't plan to change my job to become a wizard yet. Zuemo waved his right hand gently. A purple rope appeared in the air and directly trapped the evil spirit. Don't worry, this thing is very easy to deal with, as long as you find a way to restrain it. Besides, don't you think they're an inexhaustible renewable resource that doesn't need to eat or sleep and won't ask you for wages? Seeing Zuemo control this thing, Tony walked out from behind him. I hope this thing will only ask me for wages, but it seems that what he really wants is my life. But after saying that, Tony still looked at the evil spirit floating in the air seriously. After confirming that the other party couldn't move, he even reached out and touched the other party. Seeing the palm pass directly through the other party's body, Tony's face was stunned. Okay, this thing is left to you. Study it well and try to get the research results as soon as possible. Zuemo reached out and patted the other person on the shoulder with a wave of his hand. A contract appeared in front of Tony. With a light wave of his hand, a blue light spot was pulled out of the evil spirit's mind and immersed in the contract. Sign this contract and she will be controlled by you in the future. Tony heard this, half believing and half doubting as Zuemo said, and reached out to press on the contract. Instantly, the contract directly sank into Tony's mind. Tony closed his eyes and felt it, then opened his eyes. Zuemo had also removed the magic that bound the evil spirit. At this time, the evil spirit kept posing in various postures under Tony's control. Oh my god, this thing is so great. Tony's eyes flashed with excitement, and then he thought of something and asked Zuemo tentatively, can this thing be used on women? Chapter 178 Asgard spaceship arrives. Captain America wakes up. America Point, Missouri, a vast and uninhabited prairie. A spaceship that resembled a ship fell from the sky swayingly and finally slammed to the ground. Several figures wearing armor flew out of the spaceship and plunged into the soil on the side. After a while, a figure pulled his head out of the soil. It was Hogan, one of the 4 idiots in Asgard. He stretched out his hand to clean the dirt on his head, walked to the side, and pulled the remaining people out of the dirt like a carrot. The last person to pull out was a short man with a crew cut. After pulling the man out, Hogan asked angrily, "Asshole, is this what you promised me, to be able to control the spaceship easily?" The crew cut man who was being questioned spat out the mud in his mouth and quickly explained, "Boss, I'm really not lying to you, but I haven't driven this thing for hundreds of years, since the Rainbow Mouth Bridge was built, so it's a bit rusty. Don't worry, this kind of thing will never happen next time." After hearing his explanation, Hogan angrily pointed at the spacecraft that smashed into a boulder and opened a big hole in the back. He reached out and knocked hard on his hand. "Do you want a next time? Do you think this spaceship can still take us away?" The crew cut man turned his head and glanced at the large smoking hole in the spaceship behind him. He covered his head with his hands and did not dare to speak again. At this time, the remaining people from behind came up. "Boss, don't worry. I heard that Rainbow Front will be repaired in more than half a year at most. If you want to go back, then you won't need this thing," a woman with long hair explained. After hearing this, Hogan glanced hard at the crew cut man and let him go. He turned his head and looked around. "Sani, hide the spaceship. This time, under the orders of the god King Odin, we are here to investigate the man who took away the Banshee Lorelei. Everything must be done in secret, so that no one can discover our arrival." Last time, after Odin suffered a secret loss at the hands of Zuemo. He has been thinking about it. Moreover, the Banshee Eluoleloi, known as the greatest disaster in the 9 realms, and the treasures stolen by the other party were both taken away by Zuemo. Naturally, he would send someone to capture him. After the fight, he also learned what happened from Sol's mouth. He also realized that he might have wrongly blamed the other party. But so what? It is an indisputable fact that the other party took away Eluoleloi and the treasures in his treasury. He will definitely find this place back. But the Rainbow Bridge has been destroyed, making it difficult to travel between the two worlds. It would take more than half a year to repair the Rainbow Bridge, so he took advantage of this time to send people to search for traces of the villain who stole his treasure. After the Rainbow Bridge is repaired, he will be able to get his things back directly. Okay, boss. The woman named Sunny who just spoke waved her staff gently. The soil below the spacecraft instantly turned into a quagmire, sinking the spacecraft directly into it. A moment later, the spacecraft had completely sunk into the ground. Hogan nodded upon seeing this. Remember, the other party is powerful. Everything must be done in secret and must not be noticed by the other party. Otherwise all of us may be in danger. After speaking, he identified the direction. Finally, he led everyone in one direction. New York. In a restaurant in Times Square. Zuemo and Hill were sitting at a dining table by the window on the 2nd floor. After leaving Stark Tower, Zuemo came here to rush to Hill's appointment. Speaking of this, Hill had called himself no less than 7 or 8 times, obviously to thank him for saving his life last time. After he declined politely several times, he finally agreed when the other party called again yesterday. Today, Hill has changed from her original combat uniform and put on a blue suspender skirt. Her hair has been permed into slightly curly waves and spread out. She looks like a mature and intellectual woman. Obviously, the other party had specially dressed up today. It's not easy to ask you out. Hill elegantly stuffed a piece of steak into his mouth and joked, "That's because you made the date at the wrong place. If we had made the date in a hotel, I might have come the first time." Zuemo raised his head and glanced at the other party with the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Stop, don't use the trick you used to coax little girls on me." Hearing this, Hill had a smile on his face. He didn't take his joke seriously. As a level 9 SHIELD agent, she was very aware of Zuemo's playboy style. After all, SHIELD can find almost all information about the opponent from childhood to adulthood. And the information is extremely detailed. Even what posture the other party likes is clearly recorded. He has harmed as many as 800 women over the years, even during this period. She discovered that even Natasha, a level 9 agent, was not clear with this kid. She had no intention of giving him away for free for the time being. Zuemo heard this. He shook his head innocently. "I didn't lie to you." Hill smiled nonchalantly. "Originally, after the last incident ended, I wanted to treat you to dinner and thank you, but then big things happened one after another, so I delayed it until now." Hearing this, Zuemo asked casually, "What kind of big deal can keep you, a level 9 agent, so busy?" At the level of 9th level agents like Hill, they don't need to take action in ordinary trivial matters. If they can get involved, the matter will never be too small. Of course, if it's a secret, there's no need to tell. Hearing this, Hill shook his head. "There's nothing I can't say." After speaking, Hill took a sip of red wine and then spoke in a low voice. "First of all, at the beginning of last month, nearly 1 million people in the entire world disappeared out of thin air. In the United States alone, there were more than 300,000. Zuemo raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Naturally, he knew very well about this matter. It was his own handiwork. Vampires that had been destroyed by one of his spells. From the number of points obtained, he could also guess the approximate number of vampires. However, after investigation during this period, we found that these people may have another identity, which is the kind of vampire we met last time. They don't know what happened internally, so nearly 1 million people died in one night." Hill added, "What about the rest?" Zuemo continued to ask. Compared to the intelligence department on Death Island, the information from SHIELD is more comprehensive. Naturally, he refused to let go of this opportunity to get information. Hill glanced at Zuemo. The reason why she said this was naturally to repay Zuemo for saving his life last time. Otherwise, with her qualifications as a level 9 agent, it would be absolutely impossible for her to tell others these things so casually. And then there's before she finished speaking, she noticed Zuemo looking out the window. She followed Zuemo's gaze. Suddenly, he saw a group of SHIELD agents headed by Nick Fury, surrounding a young man wearing a white t-shirt. Seeing this, Hill sighed. Okay, one more thing about this. An oil exploration team dug up this old antique in Antarctica. You should be familiar with it. Captain America. Chapter 179 Mutant Attack. Times Square Center. Captain America Steve was looking at the unfamiliar environment around him with a confused look on his face. As Nick Fury and a group of SHIELD agents surrounded him. After some persuasion, the group planned to leave. Zuemo was not surprised by this scene. It seemed that after Captain America came out, he had been arranged by SHIELD in a secret place to gradually adapt to the new era. At this time, outside the SHIELD agents, several figures who looked like ordinary people suddenly took out pistols from their bodies and emptied the magazines towards these agents and Captain America and Nick Fury in the center. Those agents were killed or injured 5 or 6 in an instant. However, those who could be brought out by the director were obviously the best in SHIELD. These agents reacted quickly, looking for shelters around and hiding, and took out their guns to fight back. Nick Fury and Steve standing in the center reacted faster. Nick Fury wanted to pull Steve to dodge behind the car at the first time, but Steve reacted faster than him. He shrank his body, bent his waist, and rushed towards the gunman on his left in an S-shaped route. With his speed, he rushed to the gunman in less than 5 seconds. At this time, the crowd around him, after hearing the gunshots, all fled skillfully with their heads in their hands, which resulted in only the SHIELD agents and the dozen gunmen in the center. The gunman obviously did not expect that the other party dared to rush up in the rain of bullets. The key point is that in his direction, 4 gunmen fired at the same time, but none of them hit Steve on the opposite side. Before the gunman could react, Steve rushed and threw him to the ground. For a while, the whole square was in chaos. Zuemo, who was sitting in the restaurant on the 2nd floor with Hill, saw this scene and turned to look at Hill, who looked calm on the opposite side. Why, don't you plan to go up to help? Hearing this, Hill smiled and shook his head. I'm on vacation now, and in my opinion, these people are enough to solve the current situation. Sure enough, as time went by, the gap between the two sides became apparent. After all, the SHIELD side had some well-trained agents, and with Steve as a hang, the situation was almost one-sided. In less than 5 minutes, all the gunmen on the opposite side were cleared out. Just when Nick Fury and Steve had just breathed a sigh of relief. A black metal statue on a seat in the center of the square actually stood up directly. With a move, he suddenly pounced on Steve, who was less than 2 meters away, and pressed him under him. The metal fist hit Steve's face hard. The huge force made Steve's brain blinded, and his eyes became a little confused in an instant. But before the opponent's second punch came, he came back to his senses and raised his hand to stop the opponent's fist. The two wrestled together instantly. Seeing this scene, the faces of the surrounding agents changed. Mutants. Nick Fury's face changed. Then he hurried to the back of a car park not far away, took out a silver shield from the trunk, and threw it at the American captain, who was being beaten. Although Steve was injected with super soldier serum, his strength was as much as 4 or 5 tons, but facing this mutant who could metallize his body, he did not have much advantage in strength. In addition, the other party's body was completely metallized, and if he fought head on with the other party, his body would be a little bit unable to withstand it. Noticing the flying shield, Steve rolled over and caught the shield in his hand. With the shield in hand, Steve's confidence increased greatly. Hiding his whole body behind the shield, he rushed towards the opposite mutant. Seeing this, the mutant showed a smile on his dark face, and his big white teeth looked particularly conspicuous. Game time is over. I have to be serious. After saying that, the other party punched Steve's shield hard. Steve's figure was like a broken sack, and he flew out in an instant, and the direction he flew was exactly the direction of the restaurant where Zuemo and the others were. Bang! After a loud noise, Steve's figure smashed through the glass and fell to the ground 7 or 8 meters away from Zuemo. In the square outside, the mutant was obviously coming for Steve. He ignored the agents who were shooting at him crazily and walked straight towards Steve. Seeing this, Hill couldn't calm down anymore. Lifting up the hem of her skirt, take out a pistol from the root of her thigh. Standing up, she was about to stop the other party in front of the broken window point, but as soon as she stood up, she was stopped by Zumo. "What are you going to do, Captain? America can't stop the other party. Do you want to die?" Zumo pressed him down on the seat, but Hill sat down again and looked at the mutant who was walking towards her. Although she knew that if Zumo took action, it would be very simple to deal with the other party, and if she spoke, Zumo would most likely not refuse, but she didn't speak. Point after all, the other party did not belong to SHIELD. He had already saved her once before, so she couldn't rely on him every time. Zumo glanced at him. At this time, two figures walked out from a corner of the restaurant. "Boss." The two walked up to Zumo and saluted respectfully. Zumo nodded. He glanced at the mutant walking over from the square outside. "Get rid of this man, understood?" The two nodded respectfully and then disappeared from the spot in a flash. These two people were one of the original 500-man team of Death Island. These two people were also met by chance after Zumo came to the restaurant. He naturally had no impression of the two people. If the two had not come up to salute before, Zumo would not have known that the two people were one of those soldiers. Zumo was only surprised at the beginning that the two people could appear here. These people are now distributed in various parts of the world, and New York is naturally no exception, but it is indeed a coincidence that they happen to meet here. Since there are subordinates here. Zumo was too lazy to take action and tasted the lunch in front of him with peace of mind. Although he didn't want to get involved in these messes of SHIELD, he couldn't just watch Hill, who invited him to dinner, go to his death. After all, the bill hadn't been settled yet. At this time, everyone in the restaurant had already fled. Only the two of them and Steve, who had just gotten up from the ground not far away, were left. Steve rubbed his chest, looked at the two curiously, and then jumped down again from the gap he had crashed into. At this time, below the restaurant. Zumo's two men had already stopped in front of the mutant. "You are..." The mutant looked at the two people who stopped in front of him with a cautious face. He felt a hint of danger from them and was about to speak to test them. But the two had no intention of talking nonsense to each other. The figure flashed and disappeared again. Seeing this, the mutant's face changed, but before he could react, he felt a huge force coming from his chest. The nearly half-ton body flew out to the back uncontrollably. Chapter 180. The mutant hammered into a discus. Seeing that the other party did not hesitate to attack, the mutant whose body turned into metal immediately realized that the two were in the same group with the people from SHIELD, and a trace of cruelty appeared in his eyes. After turning into metal form, his body's ability to withstand blows will be greatly enhanced, and the recovery ability will also be improved. As for the shortcomings such as the brain and heart, they will all disappear. The powerful punch just now, although the power was far beyond his expectation, directly smashed a large hole several centimeters deep in his chest, but the actual damage caused to him was very limited. Before he fell to the ground, the dent in his chest had recovered, but before he landed, another figure of the two had already appeared behind him. Dang. There was another loud noise. Under the huge force, his body returned directly to the original path and flew back to the original position. Feeling the pain coming from behind, the man's face changed. A bad premonition also emerged in his heart. For more than a minute, the square was like a blacksmith, with constant clang, clang clang sounds. Hill, who was sitting opposite Zumo, watched the mutant being thrown back and forth like a sandbag by the two people sent by Zumo, and during this process, the distance between the two people was constantly getting closer until the end. The sounds in the square had become one. Hill retracted his gaze and carefully glanced at Zumo opposite him. Zumo didn't seem surprised by the situation outside and leisurely held the red wine and looked at the scene in the square. He was naturally not surprised. The strength of these two people, one is in the middle stage of the general and the other is in the late stage of the general. Even the soldier in the middle stage of the general has a strength of about 20 tons. And the strength of the late stage of the general is more than 30 tons. It is not an easy task To deal with such a mutant point in the square point, Captain America, Steve and Nick Fury and those SHIELD agents all stood aside, staring blankly at the mutant in the middle who had been hammered out of human form. So, I haven't been out for decades. Has the world changed so much? Steve looked at the mutant who was holding him with a hammer, like a toy in front of the other two, and turned to look at Nick Fury on the side point. Hearing this, Nick Fury didn't know how to explain point. Even he didn't know where the two people in front of him came from. Point. The strength of these two people is not an exaggeration. To call them little superhero. Point. Any one of them would probably be able to wipe out their shield without any effort. After all, just from the speed shown by the two, the speed has exceeded 100 meters per second, reaching subsonic speed, and even thermal weapons are extremely difficult to lock them. And unlike the fighter planes that have difficulty turning, their bodies are extremely flexible, as long as they want. At present, even Hulk may not have any way to deal with them. What terrified him most was that these two people obviously had a hint of military style. This means that they may have been trained by a certain organization. Point. This is a bit scary. It was already very difficult to deal with one or two of these people. If there were a large number of strong people of this strength, he couldn't imagine what these people were going to do, and who could stop them. Perhaps the only way to restrain them was Professor X's psychic ability. Thinking of Professor X, Nick Fury quietly breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the battle in the square also stopped. The mutant had been hammered into a discus by two blacksmiths. With a bang, it fell on the marble floor. Seeing this, the two did not stop. After completing Zuemo's instructions, they disappeared directly in the square. In the restaurant, Zuemo took out a napkin, wiped the corner of his mouth, and looked at Hill, who was looking at him with shining eyes. "Why are you looking at me like this?" Hill asked anxiously. "Is the improvement of Natasha's strength related to you having been in SHIELD for so many years?" She naturally knew Natasha's strength very well. Point. The two were also familiar with each other, and they had practiced fighting skills together. Although her fighting ability was very strong before, it was still within the scope of ordinary people. However, since she came into contact with Zuemo, her strength has improved greatly in the past 2 years. Not in terms of skills, but in terms of her own strength and speed. It has improved at least 4 or 5 times compared to before. Now when the other party lets go, she can't even take a single blow. She once wondered why the other party's strength has improved so much. However, this involves the other party's privacy, so she didn't ask. Until she saw the two people who just called Zuemo the boss take action, she immediately realized that everything should be from Zuemo's hands. Hearing what the other party said, Zuemo did not hide it. Nodded. "Yes, it is indeed some small tricks I taught her." Small tricks? After hearing this, Hill's face was full of question marks. A little trick can improve physical fitness 4 or 5 times. However, after seeing the discus on the square outside, she understood. The other party should not have lied to him. According to the strength of the two people, Natasha's improvement can only be called a little trick. Thinking of this, she looked at Zuemo with fiery eyes. But soon, she gradually calmed down. Point. The reason why Zuemo taught Natasha was because there was a negative distance between the two. Although she had a good impression of Zuemo, she was a little hesitant when she thought of his wife and a group of women. Point. Until Zuemo stood up and woke her up. Do you want to come to my house?" Hill made an invitation in a mysterious way. Point. As soon as the words came out, her face turned red. Point. I wish I could find a crack in the ground to drill into it. Zuemo looked at the other party's face, and a playful smile appeared on his face. In his impression, Hill always gave him a cold and heroic feeling. This kind of little woman's expression was the first time he saw it. Is it convenient? Of course it's convenient. I've always lived alone," Hill explained subconsciously, but after she finished speaking, she reacted and wanted to slap herself in the face. Isn't it a naked him to say this now? But the problem is that she really just answered subconsciously. There is really no other meaning. Point. Will the other party think she is a casual woman? Hill was a little uneasy. Point. God has pity on her. She has never been in love since she was a child. Half an hour later, in an apartment 4 or 5 kilometers away from New York Square. "Sit down first. I'll make you a cup of coffee." Hill said, and then walked towards the kitchen. Point after all, she is a battle-hardened 9th level agent with a strong psychological quality. Point at this time, her mood has stabilized. Although she still has a little trepidation in her heart, at least it does not affect her brain's thinking. Zuemo looked at the layout of the room. Judging from the simple and conventional layout around him, Hill should be a rather old-fashioned and traditional person in his daily life. A moment later, Hill came out with a bottle of red wine. The coffee is gone. Would you like some red wine? Okay, Zoo. Emo looked at the other party's suppressed calmness. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. They are indeed from the same shield, and even their routines are exactly the same. Chapter 181, Natasha and the Red House. The next morning. Zuemo was awakened by a cell phone ring. He opened his eyes and saw Hill, who was still a little tired, answering the call. In a moment, her expression became serious. Okay, I'll leave in an hour, Hill agreed and hung up the phone. Just after hanging up the phone, a blush appeared on her serious face. Don't make trouble. She pulled Zuemo's hand out of the quilt. Natasha is in danger. I have to pack up and leave immediately. Natasha. Zuemo was stunned when he heard it. That's right. Hill glanced at him, stood up and picked up the clothes scattered on the ground, and explained. The other party went to deal with the Red House she used to serve some time ago, and the other party's contact was cut off 2 hours ago, which means that the other party should have encountered some problems. At this point, Hill asked with a hint of ridicule in his tone. How about it? Do you want to go with me? She didn't expect that she would just roll with the other person in a confused way. However, she had a very clear understanding of her position. Like Natasha, she could only be regarded as an insignificant sex partner of Zuemo at most. Jealousy or something. There was no such thing. After hearing Hill's words, Zuemo nodded. Of course I'll go. It was possible to make Natasha cut off her contact with S.H.I.E.L.D. As an ordinary person, Hill's role would not be too great after he went. I couldn't just watch the two of them take risks and do nothing. Budapest. In the sky dozens of kilometers away from the city. A huge aerial fortress disappeared in the clouds. This mobile fortress was the headquarters of the Red House. In a room inside the fortress, Natasha looked at a slightly fat middle-aged man standing opposite her. Behind the middle-aged man stood 7 or 8 women in black. Natasha, I have to admit that you are the best of the Black Widows I have trained over the years. You dare to come here alone, but is this your plan? The middle-aged man Drake looked at Natasha calmly. Of course, my plan is to kill you. After that, even when facing 7 or 8 Black Widows, Natasha did not hesitate to attack. Drake Fu smiled, waved to the people behind him, and then retreated to the back. 7 or 8 Black Widows came forward with weapons in their hands and fought with Natasha. But obviously, Natasha, who has completely mastered the first 5 levels of the Thunderblade, is not something these people can stop. Her fighting experience is above them. In addition, her physical fitness is almost 5 times that of them. It's almost like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. In less than a minute, the remaining 7 or 8 Black Widows all fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing this scene, Drakifu's face showed excitement. He walked up with his hands clapping. Wow, it seems that what I said before was a bit conservative. The other Black Widows are just like trash in front of you. Natasha saw the calmness of the other party and showed a trace of suspicion on her face. Looking at the other party's expression, it seems that he is a little fearless. But she didn't want to waste time with the other party. This is the base camp of the Red House, with at least hundreds of Black Widows. Although he is very strong now, it is impossible for him to fight so many people at the same time. She took out a short blade and rushed towards the other party. Just when she approached the other party, her body movement froze instantly, and the raised blade could not fall down. Natasha showed a look of shock on her face. What did you do to me? Seeing her expression, Drakat showed a smug smile on his face. There is a lock containing pheromones in the bodies of all of you Black Widows. As long as you smell my pheromones, you can't use violence against me. How about it? Are you surprised? After saying that, He stretched out his hand and slapped Natasha's face. He wanted to make this traitor feel despair. Just when his palm was about to touch Natasha, a space door appeared between one or two people, and a hand stretched out from it and held his hand. Then a figure walked out from inside. Of course, it was Zuemo who came to rescue her. Hill's figure also walked out from behind. "Hi, Natasha, long time no see." Zuemo greeted Natasha behind him. "Zu?" Hearing the voice, Natasha showed a look of surprise on her face and suddenly threw herself into his arms. Zuemo stretched out his hand to hug her waist and felt the touch in his hand. "It has been a while since I last saw Natasha." Natasha's figure has become much plumper and more voluptuous than before. "Next time something like this happens, you should tell me in advance. You should know that this is not a difficult thing for me." Reaching out and kneading the other's waist, Zuemo looked down at the other and said. Natasha heard this and smiled and looked up at Zuemo. "I don't want to trouble you with these things, and I can handle them myself." Zuemo nodded. According to Natasha's personality, it is obviously unlikely that she would ask for help from the other party. Besides, the other party did not lie. In the original plot, she was able to solve the Red House, although with the help of Yelena and her adoptive parents, but her current strength is no longer the same as before. After her strength has been improved, she will naturally have no problem dealing with it alone. Of course, some suffering is inevitable. Just like in the original play, in order to deal with Dracov, she directly broke her nose bridge so that she could not smell the other party's pheromones. The moment Dracov saw the other party appear, he quietly pressed a button in his pocket. This button is used to summon the Black Widow in the base. This little action naturally could not be hidden from Zuemo on the opposite side. However, he ignored the other party, reached out and patted Natasha on the back. "Let's solve this thing first, and then we can talk." Hearing this, Natasha nodded and stood aside obediently. At this moment, she noticed that Hill, who was standing behind Zuemo, was looking at the slowly disappearing portal with a surprised look on his face, and a smile appeared on his face. When she first saw the portal, her expression was the same as Hill's. Zuemo came to the window of the room and looked at this huge aerial city with a surprised look on his face. It would be a pity to destroy such a huge mobile base. This time Zuemo learned his lesson and communicated with Emma first before opening the portal to Emma's side. Emma, dressed in a decent secretary, walked out of the portal. Standing next to Zuemo, he looked out of the window. This time it's a big harvest. At the same time, another purple portal appeared. Apocalypse came out with Magneto and a team of dozens of soldiers. Looking at the scene in front of him, Drake's expression changed. He seemed to have provoked a group of incredible beings. Chapter 182. The Sky City is in hand. Just as everyone arrived, a group of Black Widows broke through the door and rushed in. When these people saw Dracov, who was so scared by the scene that he could only hide in the corner, their faces changed, and they rushed towards Zuemo and the others. A soldier following Cheyenne saw this. He moved and disappeared on the spot. Boom. There was a loud noise. The Black Widows who rushed in front seemed to be affected by some huge force, and their bodies flew backwards at a high speed. They also knocked the group of people behind them to the ground. These soldiers brought by Cheyenne were the best among those soldiers. Their strength had at least reached the level of high-level generals. The strongest was even only one step away from the God of War. However, at present, including the first few people, no one had broken through to the God of War level. I think so. Without external assistance, being able to cultivate to the level of high-level generals in more than 2 years is already considered a gifted talent. According to the strength of at least 32 tons and the speed of 180 meters per second of the high-level warriors. It is a bit too much to say that they are bullying these ordinary Black Widows. Looking at the Black Widows lying on the ground, Natasha stepped forward and pulled Zuemo. Zuemo immediately understood these Black Widows were all controlled by Dracov, not their intention. Zuemo shouted at the soldier, "Be careful when you attack, just make the opponent lose the ability to resist." These Black Widows are all outstanding ones who have been trained in hell. They are outstanding in cultivation talent and combat instinct. They are suitable candidates for both cultivation and fusion of venom. Staying here will be very useful to Zuemo. "Okay, boss." The soldier nodded quickly after hearing this. At this time, Emma waved her hand. Forget it, I'll do it. After saying that, a bright light shone in her eyes. A spiritual energy spread wildly around. In the corridor outside the room, countless black widows rushing towards this side, all stopped, and their eyes became stunned for a moment. Then all these people walked towards the room in an orderly manner. At this time, Zuemo had also come to Drakov in the corner. What are you going to do? Drakov looked at Zuemo, who was coming over, and a look of fear appeared on his face. He unconsciously wanted to retreat, but at this time he had retreated to the corner of the wall, and could not retreat. From the conversation just now, he also understood that Zuemo was the leader of these people. Zuemo did not pay attention to the other party's plan. A purple light flashed in his eyes, and Drakov's expression suddenly became sluggish. Soul-stealing technique. For this kind of person, unless the other party's mind is controlled, he will not believe a word of what the other party says. Call back all the Black Widows in the world and hand over the authority of the Sky City. Hearing Zuemo's order, Drakov nodded woodenly. He walked stiffly to the control panel in the room. Reach out and operated through the data on the display screen. Zuemo discovered that there were tens of thousands of Black Widows controlled by Drakov all over the world. Zuemo ordered him to gather all these people to the Island of Death. Then he transferred the highest authority of the Red House, the Sky City, to Apocalypse. So far, the Sky City has completely become the property of the Island of Death. Zuemo removed the soul-stealing spell on the other party, and then brought the other party to Natasha. This person is handed over to you. After saying that, Zuemo reached out and gently touched the tip of Natasha's nose. Your sense of smell has been temporarily turned off by me. Now you can ravage the other party as much as you want. Hearing this, Natasha stepped forward and pecked Zuemo on the face, looking at him with a smile. Thank you. After saying that, she picked up Drakov and walked towards the room next to her. No, Natasha, I can remove all the control on you, and don't you want to know where Melina and Yelena are? Let me go, and I can tell you. The terrified Drakov begged for mercy. But Natasha ignored him. As soon as Natasha left, all the Black Widows in the Sky City came outside the room. Zuemo opened a portal to the Death Island, and they walked into the portal in an orderly manner. Emma glanced in the direction where Natasha left. You have so many little lovers. After saying that, she followed the Black Widows into the space door. Hearing the other party's words, Zuemo's face did not show any embarrassment. People who are not thick-skinned are not worthy of having more than 2 women. In the end, only Zuemo and Hill were left in the room. Apocalypse and Magneto took the soldiers and began to integrate various resources in the Sky City and controlled the Sky City and flew towards the location of the Death Island. After seeing that there was no one else in the room, Hill came up. Ah, those your people, Zu. Emo did not deny it, but nodded. Although she had some expectations of the power in Zuemo's hands, she was still a little shocked. After seeing all this, I'm afraid any of his minions can pass through S.H.I.E.L.D. without any harm. After all, she couldn't even see the movements of the man who had just made the move. Intuitively, that man was much stronger than the 2 people she had seen in the square yesterday, and judging from his position, it was obvious that he was the lowest ranking person among them. There were dozens of people like him standing in the room just now. Half an hour later in a villa in New York. Zuemo and Natasha walked out of a space door. This was a villa that Natasha had just bought. Hill had returned home. She knew very well that Natasha needed Zuemo more than she did. After taking a shower and changing clothes, Natasha came to Zuemo with a bottle of red wine. Would you like to drink some? Okay, Zu. Emo nodded. Ever since she dealt with Drakov, Natasha had been in a trance. Zuemo understood this. The other party was adopted by the Red House since childhood and had been undergoing inhumane training until he graduated successfully and turned into a ruthless killing machine. Although he later left the Red House. But there is no doubt that the Red House and Trekov left a shadow on her for life. Resolving the other party personally undoubtedly untied her, not in her heart. At this time, getting drunk was not a bad thing for her. Natasha poured herself a full glass. She looked up at Zuemo and showed a charming smile on her face. Cheers. After saying that, he raised his head and drank the red wine in the glass in one gulp. Zuemo did not stop the other party, but accompanied her to drink one glass of wine after another. These wines are almost no different from water for him now. The speed of drinking is not as fast as his metabolism. At the end of drinking, Natasha's eyes were blurred, but Zuemo still looked normal, listening to the other party telling about childhood. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Missing Raven. Death Island. It was almost noon the next day. Zuemo just walked out of the portal. I have to say that Natasha was too crazy last night. From the early morning of last night to now, Zuemo didn't have a minute to rest. That's because of his strong physique. For ordinary people, let alone getting out of bed now, I'm afraid it's a problem whether they can get out of bed in the second half of their lives. Zuemo also completely recognized the fighting skills of the Black Widow. In the villa. Emma was reporting yesterday's gains to Zuemo. Sky City is still on the way back. With its huge size, the flying speed can't be too fast. It will take at least 2 or 3 days to reach the Death Island. The above gains have not been counted yet, but the thousands of Black Widows on the island alone are already a huge gain. After these people enter the practice, the speed of strength improvement will probably not be slow. Apocalypse has sent back the antidote that can remove the control, and these Black Widows on the island have woken up from the previous controlled state. Under Emma's persuasion, these people have all planned to stay on the island. Zuemo took out a document and handed it to Emma. What is this? Emma took it with doubts and opened it to read. What Zuemo handed her was a kind of secret method he found in the secret method library. It is commonly used in the universe to restrain disciples and prevent the other party from leaking the secret method. After the cast, the caster is usually not affected. Only when the method is intended to be leaked, the soul will suffer a devastating blow and die instantly. With the secret method, Emma can pass on the method on her own. There is no need to worry about the leakage of the method. After reading the method in her hand, Emma's eyes lit up. This thing is just right for Raven and these Black Widows. At this point, Emma suddenly remembered something. By the way, Raven has been on this mission for more than a week, but there has been no news until now, and there is no way to contact the other party. So I wonder if something happened to the other party. Emma's worry is unreasonable. After all, the other party's strength is now the bottom of the island. There are too many people in this world who can pose a threat to her, and they are not surprised to encounter something that they can't deal with. Zuemo thought for a while. Now Apocalypse is in the Sky City. During the flight back, it is necessary to travel a distance of 7 or 8,000 kilometers. During this process, it is not certain what will happen, so it is better not to let the other party leave. In this case, it is better to go there by yourself. Thinking of this, Zuemo asked, where is the place where the other party is carrying out the mission? California. The edge of the Mojave Desert. Yucca Valley Town. Zuemo strolled on the streets of the town. Because it is close to the desert, this is a typical desert climate. The air is very dry, and there are not many people in the town. This is where Raven lost contact. In theory, Raven's mission is very simple. A group of tourists came here, and their bodies appeared outside the town a week later. After the police investigation, there was no result. The families of the deceased commissioned the killer organization to find out the truth and kill the murderer to avenge them. This sounds like just an ordinary murder case. According to Raven's strength, it should not be difficult to solve it. But the fact is that the other party has lost contact. Follow the street to the north of the town, where the bodies of those people appeared. The other party finally appeared here. Obviously, those people should have met someone in the desert, and this enemy is a creature with wisdom, otherwise it would be impossible to kill them and send their bodies back. And from the wounds on their bodies, it can be seen that they were injured by some kind of cold weapon. But this is also the problem. Since the other party killed them, why did they send their bodies back? After thinking for a while, Zuemo also realized that there was no way to understand the truth of the matter by guessing alone. What is certain is that the murderer should be in the desert. Raven should have lost contact after entering the desert. Thinking of this, he waved his hand, and a Ford pickup truck appeared beside him. He sat in the driver's seat and drove into the desert point. While driving the vehicle, his telekinesis spread to the surroundings. This is at the edge of the desert point. It is not the endless yellow sand point. Perhaps it is more appropriate to call it a wasteland point. Occasionally, some green bushes and dry trees can be seen. Until more than half an hour later he sensed with his telekinesis that a black off-road vehicle was speeding in a bare valley 10 kilometers away from him. In the driver's seat of the car was a middle-aged man with a beard. Through telekinesis, Zuemo sensed that the other party's trunk was filled with a large number of daily necessities. After seeing these daily necessities, Zuemo's expression moved instantly. There is something wrong with this person. The direction of the other party's car was exactly the center of the wasteland. Normally speaking, most of the people who drive into the wilderness are tourists and adventure seekers. It is normal for these people to bring some food and water in the car. But in addition to these things, the trunk of this car also contains a lot of seasonings, clothes and cleaning supplies. Obviously, the other party looks more like delivering supplies to some people living in the wilderness. Thinking of this, Zuemo turned the car around and chased after the car. At present, his mental power can only cover a radius of 20 kilometers at most. He can stay far behind the car without worrying about being discovered by the other party. Until an hour later, a small wooden house hidden in the wilderness appeared within his perception range. The structure of the wooden house is very simple. 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. There is only a single bed in each of the 2 bedrooms. Judging from the decorations in the 2 bedrooms, there should be a man and a woman living there respectively. A moment later, the car stopped in the courtyard outside the wooden house. Looking at a tied figure in the room, Zuemo's eyes moved. This person is Raven, who has lost contact. In the wooden house, besides Raven, there was also a sturdy middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was busy in the room. It seemed that he was packing things. Is he planning to run away? Zuemo looked at the sturdy man and thought to himself. Chapter 184 The Eternals. Zuemo did not hesitate any longer. Press the accelerator hard with your right foot. The car was like a roaring beast, rushing into a space door in front of it. When the car appeared again, it was less than a kilometer away from the cabin. Zuemo got off the car and disappeared in a flash. Inside the house. The strong man who was packing his things opened the door. It was the middle-aged man standing outside the door at this time. The man was holding a pile of supplies in his hands and walking towards the room with ease. Joel, this time I have brought you enough living supplies to last you 2 weeks. The man put the things on the table in the living room and said excitedly. But after putting the things down, he looked at the chaotic scene in the room with a look on his face. What is going on with you? The burly man named Joel heard this, closed the door, and sighed. Lyle, you don't have to send us supplies anymore. We already planned to leave here tonight. When Lyle heard this, his expression changed. Why aren't you living a good life here? After Joel hesitated for a while, he spoke. You know those young people who died in the town last week, right? Of course, those people's families. Speaking of this, Lyle's expression changed. The deaths of those people are related to you? Joel nodded. You also know about Tina's illness. Those people happened to encounter her, and they caught up with Tina's illness at that time, so he didn't continue, but Lyle already understood what was going on. As a friend who has been together for more than 10 years, Lyle naturally understands the situation between the two of them very well. Both are mutants, and Tina also suffers from a disease. She will fall into an unconscious state from time to time. In this state, she has only one thought in her mind, which is to kill all the creatures she sees. Apparently those who died were killed in this state. Thinking of this, Lyle also sighed. Where are you going next? Maybe we will go to Australia. After all, the land there is vast and sparsely populated, so it is easier for us to hide. After Joel thought for a while, he answered. Lyle nodded, quite agreeing with this. Right. Having said this, Joel came to the inner room. In the middle of the room, Raven was tied to a chair, and even his mouth was sealed with a piece of tape. Lyle looked at Raven, who was tied up tightly. His expression changed. Who is this person? A mutant found his way here somehow, and wants to avenge those who died. He stepped forward and tore off the tape from her mouth. If you want to blame it on you for knowing things you shouldn't know. After saying that, golden lines appeared on Jill's fist, and these lines gathered in front of the fist, forming a golden light. Lived for thousands of years. This is not the first time he has encountered this kind of thing. In the past, he would kindly let the other person go point, but in the end, the other party brought more people to retaliate point. Therefore, whenever he encounters this kind of thing in the future, he will deal with it directly to avoid future troubles. After all, Tina's situation is not stable, and the person in front of him is a mutant. If a mutant organization is recruited, he is not afraid, but if Tina is hurt as a result, he will never tolerate it. etc. You dare to touch me. If my boss finds out, he will never let you go. Seeing this, Raven quickly spoke to stop the other party. Hearing the other party's stop, Jill's face looked unmoved. He doesn't intend to listen to the other party's nonsense too much. Villains die from talking too much. He has experienced this in so many years. Then, let me see why the other party won't let me go. After saying that, his fist hit the opponent again. Seeing that the other party was not moved at all, Raven had a look of despair on her face. It's over. With a cry in his heart, Raven closed her eyes in resignation. Boom. There was a loud bang. Raven only felt a huge strong wind blowing from his body. However, the expected pain did not come. Slowly opening his eyes, he suddenly saw a familiar figure standing in front of him. Boss. Raven's face showed a look of ecstasy, and her mood went from hell to heaven in an instant. Looking at the figure in front of her who gave him an endless sense of security. If her body wasn't tied tightly to the chair, she would have wanted to wrap herself around him and hit him hard. When Zuemo heard this, he looked back at her with a smile on his face. How does it feel? Raven's whole body softened under the ups and downs of her mood. Phew, it's so exciting. I almost want to squirt. Zuemo's thoughts moved. The rope tied to Raven's body collapsed. After her body was released, she suddenly stood up from the seat and reached out to rub her sore wrist. Only then did she have the intention to look around. At this time, the entire room was in chaos under the powerful shock wave just now. In front of Zuemo, a clean road was cleared. At the end of the road, there was a huge hole in the wooden wall. For a moment, Gil's figure appeared in the room again. Obviously, the punch just now did not cause any damage to him. He turned his head and looked at the wall of the room. Lyle, who was killed by the figure he had just sent out, showed a trace of anger on his face. Boy, you succeeded in anger me. After saying that, the familiar golden lines appeared on his fists again. Really? You are so easily angered. After living for thousands of years. Have you lived like a dog these years? Zuemo naturally refuted without any politeness. Hearing this, Jill's face changed, and he looked at Zuemo opposite with doubtful eyes. How? Do you know how many thousands of years I have lived? Zuemo showed an unfathomable smile on his face. Eternal. Gilgamesh. It seems that there is another Tina who should be with you. Why haven't you seen the other person? Zuemo had some guesses, since he saw the other person's appearance. After all, the man in front of him looks like the Korean god of war. Zibber. Coupled with the golden lines that just appeared in the other party's hand, and the huge power, he has basically confirmed the other party's identity. Hearing Zuemo mention Tina, Jill's expression changed drastically. Who are you? It doesn't matter who I am. I don't want to care about you people, but if you want to kill my people, then I'm sorry. I have a shortcoming. That is, I'm a little short-sighted. After saying that, Zuemo didn't bother with the other party, but disappeared directly on the spot. Hearing this, Jill's face was also angry. As an existence that has lived for thousands of years, he didn't take the natives of this planet seriously. In his opinion, these people are just some natives. If it weren't for the guidance of their eternal clan, they would still be living a life of eating raw meat and drinking blood. Thinking of this, his hands once again showed golden lines, and he smashed directly into the void in front of him. Chapter 185. Tina, the God Group. Raven stood aside. After hearing what was revealed in the conversation between the two, a look of surprise appeared on their faces. Listen to them. The man who captured himself seemed to be from a race that had lived on Earth for thousands of years. If you can live for thousands of years, the opponent's strength will naturally not be too bad. From the fact that he was knocked unconscious by the opponent with one blow before, he could tell something about it, and his original great confidence in Zuemo was also somewhat shaken. But what happened next made her gradually feel at ease. The two had just fought. Jill's body flew out uncontrollably. What follows is a one-sided bloodbath. Jill's figure turned into a sandbag, flying back and forth in front of the wooden house. But Ruin could not see Zuemo at all. 5 minutes later, Zuemo's body reappeared in front of Raven, still as before, with not even a single wrinkle in his clothes. Jill's body also hit the ground in front of the two of them with a boom. At this time, the other party was lying on the ground motionless like a dead dog. Zuemo looked at the other party's figure. He also had a sense of judgment about the other party's strength. Relying on that mysterious pattern, the opponent's power is about 100 tons of course. Correspondingly, his ability to fight against attacks is not weak either, but what doesn't match the physical strength is the opponent's speed and reaction ability, which are far behind those of warriors who practice the devouring method with the same strength. There is no way to even reach half of the other party. At this time, a figure in a white dress ran over from a distance. Zuemo glanced over there, but there was no surprise on his face. This woman in a white dress is naturally another member of the Eternals, Tina, who has embodied weapons and powerful fighting abilities. He had sensed the other party's existence before relying on his mental power. The other party was painting on a hill 1 kilometer away, holding a drawing board. The huge fighting noise here obviously attracted the opponent. When he first watched the movie, Zuemo was deeply impressed by her sexy figure. Paired with long white hair, it is indeed eye-catching. When the other party came closer, Zuemo also saw the other party's appearance clearly. Sure enough, he was very similar to Julie from the Weird World. The body itself has a noble temperament. When Tina saw the unconscious Gilgamesh on the ground, the look on her face changed. The eyeballs instantly turned pure white. It was as if he had entered some kind of unconscious state. At the same time, she stretched out her hands, and a spear and shield outlined by golden threads appeared in her hands, and then rushed towards Zuemo and Raven. Emo saw the other party's state. Naturally, it is clear that this is caused by the eternal demon disease. The Eternals are a race created by the Celestials in order to eliminate mutant races on the Earth. After the mutant races on the planet are cleaned up, and the members of the Celestial God group in the center of the Earth is born, these eternal races will be recalled by the Celestial God group, and after their memories are cleaned, they will be sent to other planets again. The so-called eternal demon syndrome is caused by the previous memories in the mind not being cleared. This also caused previous memories to flash through Tina's mind from time to time. Seeing Tina rushing up with weapons in hand. As soon as Zuemo thought the other party's body was frozen in midair after being promoted to star level, Zuemo's space freezing ability also improved. Not only can it was maintained for a longer period of time, but it can also be controlled individually in a certain area. Like this, Zuemo only needed to freeze the space around Tina so that the other party could not move at all. Raven, who was standing behind him, saw a look of surprise in his eyes when he saw this scene. The boss in front of her seemed to have reached an unfathomable level of strength. She couldn't help but be more eager to practice, and she made up her mind. After returning, she would let him teach her how to practice no matter what. She did not hesitate to pay any price for this at this time. Zuemo stretched out his hand and knocked on Tina's neck. She rolled her eyes and fainted. Glancing at Gilgamesh on the ground. With his current strength, he was not sure how to deal with the members of the God group. To be on the safe side, he did not kill them. Instead, he carried Tina aside and walked directly into the open portal. Seeing this, Raven didn't say much. He followed me and obediently. After the two came out, they appeared directly on the island of death. Okay, you go back by yourself. I have to leave beforehand. After saying that, Zuemo disappeared directly from the spot before Raven could speak. In the Star Tower, Zuemo brought Tina directly into the soul slavery space. A beam of light shot from the light ball in midair to Tina, covering her whole body. 10 seconds later the light disappears. Tina has also woken up, but at this time, she looked at Zuemo with a hint of respect. Owner. Zuemo just nodded. Then, relying on the power of the contract, he closed his eyes and began to read the other party's memory. The reason why he brought the other party back was for the remaining memory in the other party's mind point. Since a member of the celestial group is being nurtured in the center of the earth, it is inevitable that Zuemo will confront the celestial group point. After all, the birth of each member of the celestial group is accompanied by the destruction of the nurturing planet point. This is naturally no exception, and Zuemo obviously cannot let the other party destroy the earth. The memory in Tina's mind is currently his only channel to learn about the celestial group point until half an hour later Zuemo slowly opened his eyes with a look of disappointment on his face. Although Tina has some of the previous memories in her mind, but these memories are too scattered and most of them are about the elimination of mutants. But he was not too disappointed. After all, according to the plot, it will take at least a dozen years before the members of the celestial group on Earth are born. By then, maybe his strength will be enough to beat the celestial group point. At worst, he can just manually reduce the burden on the Earth point, help it wipe out countries such as Sakura and White Elephant from the map. This can also greatly slow down the birth of the celestial group. Thinking of this, he let out a long breath and looked up at Tina on the opposite side. With a thought, he deleted all the previous memories that caused her eternal demonic disease. In this way, the other party will not be affected in the future. Feeling that her mind suddenly became clear, Tina's expression moved and she looked up at Zuemo on the opposite side in surprise. Thank you, Master. She could easily guess that everything was done by Zuemo in front of her. Since you have become my person, I will naturally help you eliminate this hidden danger, Zuemo said, and then stretched out his hand and waved gently. When they reappeared, the two were already in the space where the Banshee Eluolady and the three vampires were. Chapter 186 Stellar Level Nutrient Solution. Master. Just arrived at this space. Eluolady, who was basking in the sun on the beach, saw the two of them. She hurried over. Zuemo felt it for a while. At this time, the three vampire sisters were practicing with their eyes closed behind the villa. Seeing this, Zuemo glanced at Eluolady. Compared with the three women, she was undoubtedly much lazier. While others were practicing, she was lying on the beach leisurely basking in the sun. But he did not open his mouth to blame the other party. Everyone has different pursuits and Eluolady's pursuit is to be a vassal of him safely. In terms of fighting, Zuemo can't use her at all. There is nothing wrong with making the best use of things. After Eluolady kissed Zuemo on the face, she looked at Tina behind Zuemo in surprise. What is this? Zuemo turned around and introduced the other party's origin. In the next period of time, you will pass on the skills to her and teach her how to practice. Okay, Master. Eluolady nodded hurriedly. Zuemo's mind moved. Next to the two villas, another identical villa rose from the ground. In the villa, all kinds of wooden and stone furniture are available. After reaching the star level, his control over the star tower has been enhanced again. It is not difficult to generate a villa in the forbidden space with a thought. Tina, who was standing behind him, changed her expression after seeing this scene. What kind of ability is this? Eluolady saw the other party's surprised expression, and a sense of superiority as a veteran arose spontaneously, and a smug look appeared on her face. HMPH, Master's power, you will slowly see it in the future. Hearing this, Tina closed her mouth and said no more. Stepping into the room, reaching out to touch the tables and chairs in the house. Everything is real and can be touched. Outside the villa, only Zuemo and Eluolady were left. Eluolady had a charming expression on her face. She reached out and hugged Zuemo's arm, sinking his arm into a soft place. Master, do you want to take a rest before leaving? More than 2 hours later, Zuemo had already appeared in the training room. It must be said that Eluolady is professional in pleasing men. Recover your mind. Zuemo opened the system panel. Name, Zuemo. Age, 23 years old. Strength, 100 million ton. Speed, 150,000 km/s. Telekinesis, 100 million tons. Special ability, freeze space points, 152 million points. Level, first order star level, gene level. 100 times. Avatar, space-time beast god. After more than a month in this world, the points obtained in the previous world, Mist Island, plus the points obtained in the strange world, added up to a total of 150 million points. Open the system mall. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the immortal crystal, consuming 100 million points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the stellar level nutrient solution, consuming 12 million points. After purchasing 2 items, more than 100 million points were instantly reduced to 40 million. Looking at the remaining points, Zuemo sighed. According to the absorption speed of the beast god, a piece of immortal crystal can be absorbed in a month at most. Point in other words, he must strive to earn 100 million points within a month, and in order to keep the speed of improvement unaffected, at least 100 million points will be needed in the future. This demand will increase in the future. After all, the stronger the strength, the faster the speed of absorbing immortal crystals, and this speed is likely to increase in the future. Thinking of this, he felt a little headache. Forget it, let's take it one step at a time. He could only smile helplessly in the end. Point as for the other stellar level nutrient solution, this one is similar to the planetary level nutrient solution. Point. After adding it to the nutrient cabin, the strength of the people inside can be increased from the 1st level of the stellar level to the 9th level of the stellar level. Point. The whole process takes a year. After taking out the nutrient capsule, Zuemo added the stellar grade nutrient solution. However, he did not lie down in a hurry. Instead, he flashed away from the star tower. It would take about a year to completely absorb the nutrient solution this time. During this time, he naturally needed to use the dream walking technique to harvest points in the parallel world and buy immortal crystals to improve the strength of the beast god. Point. Before that, he needed to arrange the things in this world. Point. Just returned to the villa. Point. I found a figure standing outside his room. Emma. No, you are not Emma. Raven. After Zuemo saw the figure clearly, his face was stunned, and then he reacted directly. There is a connection between him and Emma through the secret method of the soul. He can clearly feel that the other party is practicing in a villa a few kilometers away at this time, so the person in front of him is naturally a fake. Point. And the one who can achieve such a realistic appearance is naturally the magic girl Raven. Point. Hearing this, Emma on the opposite side laughed. Point. Then his appearance changed, and in a moment he turned into Raven. As expected of you, the boss. You saw through me so easily. Raven walked in with a smile. Oh, by the way, Emma has already mentioned your matter to me. Just go find her directly. Before, he had handed over a large amount of beast meat directly to Emma. Point. Those beast meats are enough to improve the strength of more than 100,000 people to the level of quasi warriors. In this way, when passing on the skills, Emma can distribute the beast meat. By the way, after all, it is impossible to reach the level of 900 kilograms of punching force by oneself. Hearing this, Raven's face was even more joyful. I see, I just came from Emma. Hearing this, Zuemo's expression moved. So, do you have other things? Raven showed a bright smile on her face and stretched out her hand to brush Zuemo's arm. Why can't I come to you, the boss, if I have nothing to do? After saying that, she didn't wait for Zuemo to speak and went straight to Zuemo's ear and whispered a few words. After listening, Zuemo waved his hand. No need. Wait, why are you pulling my pants? Before he finished speaking, he saw Raven's body change. Point. She instantly turned into the appearance of a Chinese actress, and even her body shape became exactly the same. Point. Seeing Zuemo wanted to refuse. Point. Raven stared at the face of the actress, showing a trace of grievance. Why, the master doesn't like it. Then how about this one? After saying that, she changed her face again. Point. Her body shape and voice also changed along with it. Point. However, this time, her body shape did not imitate the original version, but turned into the exaggerated body shape of the second dimension. Point. Wasp waist and fat buttocks. The whole body turned into an S-shaped curve that normal humans could not have. Hiss. Emo took a breath of cold air. Which man can withstand such temptation? Anyway, he can't resist it. Chapter 187. Blood containing energy. Los Angeles. Point. Hogan, one of the 4 fools in the fairy palace, looked at a 2-story villa in front of him. Is this the home of the company secretary of the person you found? Yes. Sonny came up and whispered in his ear. I can't find the boy in the whole New York. I hope I can get something here. Hogan muttered to himself and walked towards the villa in front of him with Sonny behind him. Halfway through, He paused. Wait, will the other party find out if we do this and alert the enemy? Hogan said with a worried look on his face. Sunny smiled softly. Don't worry, don't you trust me, the disciple of the queen of the first mage of the fairy palace? After it's over, I will erase her memory. The other party will not be able to detect it. After listening to his explanation, Hogan nodded. He couldn't help but be careless. Previously in the Asgard, he saw with his own eyes that Zuemo knocked Odin down with one blow. Even Odin couldn't resist the opponent's blow. If they met, the probability of being able to escape successfully would be infinitely close to zero. Relying on Sunny's magic, the two successfully entered the villa. Previously, Zuemo's instructions were obtained. The entire company has moved to Los Angeles Point after all. At most 1 year later, the Cheetah army will come, and the whole New York will be a disaster. Zuemo naturally has to withdraw his people in advance. Point of course, as long as he wants. It is easy to stop Loki from opening the space door, but he doesn't plan to do so. The experience baby is delivered to the door, but it is something that can only be encountered by chance. Although Asgard has a map of the 9 realms, but there are only 9 planets with life in this area. For example, the location of the Cheetah planet and the Kree planet is not recorded on the star map. If you want to find the location of these planets, you still have to rely on Loki as a guide point. If it weren't for this, Zuemo would have taken away the space gem hidden in the secret base of S.H.I.E.L.D. Destroying the entire planet. Cheetah should not only get more than tens of billions of points in the zombie world. Each zombie has only 1 point, which can bring him billions of points. According to the characteristics of the Cheetah as an aggressive race, each Cheetah should be worth at least hundreds of points. The only thing that is unclear is how many people are on the other side's planet. In the villa at this time. Avril was eating breakfast in the restaurant, staring at a financial report on the tablet. Zuemo can rest assured to hand over the company to her. She naturally has her own professional ethics. In the past few years, she has spent almost all her time dealing with the company's affairs. After looking at the bodyguard, she just closed the tablet in her hand. From the corner of her eye, she suddenly noticed that there were 2 figures standing not far from her. She was shocked. Looking up, she happened to see Hogan and Sunny standing not far away, looking at her with a smile on their faces. Who are you? Avril carefully touched her waist with her right hand, where there was a special small pistol she used for self-defense. But before she could hold the pistol, Sunny smiled at her. I advise you to be honest. After saying that, she stretched out her hand and waved it gently. Avril felt that her waist was empty. The pistol had appeared in the other party's hand without knowing when. Her face became a little ugly, but she soon calmed down. What do you want? If you want money, just report a number. Sorry, we are not interested in money. Hogan shook his head. We want to know where your boss is. Avril heard this and spoke without hesitation. I don't know. I'm just a secretary. How can I know the boss's movements? Hearing this, Hogan glanced at Sunny on the side. There was nothing wrong with her words. According to her status, it was impossible for her to know the boss's movements. Sunny chuckled when she heard it. It seems that you are unwilling to tell the truth. After she finished speaking, a hazy color flashed in her eyes. Avril felt dizzy and lost consciousness before coming. Sunny had carefully investigated the relationship between the two. The two were not only classmates, but the other party dared to hand over the entire company to the other party, so the relationship was naturally not ordinary. 10 minutes later, the two walked out of the villa. Hogan breathed a sigh of relief. This kid's whereabouts are really secretive. Even the secretary doesn't know the other party's location, but fortunately I found the address of the other party's wife. I think the other party should know the kid very well. After speaking, he looked at an address recorded on the note in his hand. It was Wanda's residence near the school, New York. Hill's apartment. Zuemo walked out of the space door and breathed a sigh of relief. It's so fucking scary. There is a reason why Raven can be called the ultimate dream of men. Only he can't think of it, but the other party can do it. In one night, he felt that he had knocked down half of the film and television industry on the Earth. In addition, the other party can be big or small, and can be a bitch or a queen. Zuemo had only one feeling. He couldn't stop. He couldn't stop at all. Take a deep breath. He suppressed the thoughts in his heart, opened the door, and walked out. In the living room. Watching Zuemo walk out of the bedroom. Hill and Simmons, who were sitting together drinking coffee and chatting, all looked at him blankly. Zuemo was stunned. Looking at the two people staring at him, he took a deep breath and sat down opposite them with a normal expression. "Why didn't you notify me when there were guests at home?" Hearing his words, Hill's face turned red. "Zoo?" After Simmons saw his appearance clearly, his face showed excitement. "Do you still remember me, the one you rescued from vampires 2 years ago?" Hearing this, Zuemo's expression moved. He looked up and down at the other person. He recalled in his mind. The other party was the little girl he had rescued from Agatha before. Simmons, he was also surprised. Then the two chatted familiarly. The embarrassment on Hill's face also eased a lot. "Have you joined SHIELD?" "Yes, I'm currently a member of the Biological Research Laboratory." Simmons did not hide anything from Zuemo. After all, she joined SHIELD because of the influence of him and Hill. Hearing the other party's answer, Zuemo's eyes moved. In fact, after hearing the other party's name, he had already recalled it. The other party was a genius biochemical expert among SHIELD agents. He thought about that kind of blood containing powerful energy for a long time, but he couldn't think of where to find it. He didn't know if he could artificially create it with the other party's attainments in biology. Although the possibility is not high, there is no harm in trying. Thinking of this, he directly told the other party about it. Chapter 188. Hogan is full of confidence. Simmons had no reason to refuse Zuemo's request for help. After a moment, she took the various blood samples that Zuemo gave her and left in a hurry. Seeing the other party's back as he left, Hill closed the door and looked at Zuemo with a smile on his face. "It seems that you have a lot of little fans." Zuemo rationally did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he turned around and sat down on the sofa. "Do you want to learn the secret technique that can improve your strength with a way to prevent the other party from passing on the skills?" He naturally planned to teach her and Natasha the practice method without hesitation. "I can learn." Hearing his words, Hill's face showed excitement. "Of course." Zuemo nodded. In the following time, he used the secret method to directly pass the practice method into the other party's mind. After a moment, Hill slowly opened his eyes. Is the record in this skill true? Although he had seen the strength of Zuemo's men, Hill still showed an unbelievable look on his face. The cultivation method recorded above, when cultivated to the later stage, can rely on the body to cross the universe. It's simply too exaggerated. Would I lie to you, Zuemo nodded with a smile. As long as you practice according to the above method, you can reach the level of the two people in the square in 2 years at most. After saying that, Zuemo took out some beast meat and left it to the other party, and after entrusting some things that need to be paid attention to cultivation, he left directly. After leaving here, he went to Natasha's house immediately. Since the method is taught, it is naturally not to be partial to one over the other. Philadelphia. Wanda drove back to the villa after class in the afternoon. Sonia resolutely moved out of the villa some time ago. For some unknown reason. Now she is the only one left in the villa. So usually after returning home, she will go directly to Taro Village through the portal, and on weekends, she will go to Pietro's place and have a meal with him. After parking the car, her expression suddenly changed, and she looked towards the room. Through the wall of the house, she seemed to see the scene in the room. It was afternoon. In addition, the villa area itself was sparsely populated. Wanda hesitated for a while and shouted into the room, "Come out." Hearing Wanda's voice, Hogan and Sunny, who were hiding in the room, changed their expressions. At the same time, they had a bad premonition in their hearts. After hesitating for a moment, the two walked out of the door directly, looking at Wanda standing in the yard with caution. But the two were not too panicked. Before entering the house, they had already inquired from the neighbors around that only a young woman lived in this house. After excluding the possibility that Zuemo lived here, they dared to enter the room directly. "Who are you and why are you hiding in my room?" Facing Wanda's questioning, the two did not intend to explain. Hogan winked at Sunny. The other party did not hesitate at all and directly launched the confusing magic. Wanda in front of them as Zuemo's wife, and Zuemo may come here at any time. The best thing for them to do is to quickly get information about Zuemo from Wanda and then leave quickly. Otherwise, if they are blocked by Zuemo, it will be difficult to leave. In fact, according to their idea, they only need to investigate Zuemo's information in secret. But after a few days, the only information they got is that the other party is a rich playboy. Not to mention the other party's strength. They don't even know the location of Zuemo. If they really wait until the day when Odin comes, they will be furious if they don't know anything. In desperation, they can only take risks. Get the other party's information from the people around them. Wanda, who was looking at the two people with a cautious face, saw the light in Sunny's eyes and felt a spiritual energy eroding towards her. The chaotic power in the body, gently released, directly shattered the eroding energy. After a flash of light in Sunny's eyes, she disappeared. Her body even retreated backwards under the backlash. She looked at the other party in doubt. "Ah. You also a mage, you can say that." After Wanda answered, she waved her hands gently. Several red ropes appeared and wrapped around the two people opposite. However, after watching the ropes wrapped around the two people and passing through their bodies, Wanda's expression also moved. She waved her hands vigorously. A red light spread out from her to the surroundings. The two figures standing in front of her burst and disappeared like bubbles, and their figures appeared more than 10 meters away from her. Looking at the postures of the two people, it is obvious that they want to take the opportunity to leave. After the failure of the charm spell, the two wanted to leave without any hesitation. After all, the charm spell has no effect. In the case that Odin could not come, they did not dare to hurt each other. Ashley. If they angered the other party and the spaceship was already damaged, they would have no way to escape and could only hide like a lost dog. The two wanted to escape, but Wanda did not intend to let them go. From the previous situation, the two were obviously coming for her with a clear goal, and she had no enemies from beginning to end, so it was obvious that the two were coming for Zuemo. In this case, she would not let them go. She waved her hands gently. Several balls of red chaotic energy flew towards the two. Seeing this, the two hurriedly dodged. Seeing Wanda's persistence, Hogan's face darkened. "Little girl, we are leaving not because we are afraid of you. If we really fight, it is hard to say what kind of damage you will suffer. If you know what is good for you, just let us leave." Hearing his words, Wanda was unmoved. Red energy appeared in her hands, and her attitude was clear at a glance. Seeing this situation, Hogan's face also showed a cruel look. "In that case, don't blame us. At worst, they could find a place to hide after finishing off the other party." Although Emo was very strong, he didn't believe that the other party could find them when they were determined to hide. Thinking of this, he moved and rushed towards the opposite side. Sunny behind him also cast magic at the same time to hide the two figures. The strongest magic of the Queen of God's figure is Illusion Point, and her apprentice is naturally best at Illusion Point. After hiding Hogan's figure, she was sure that the other party could not easily determine the other party's position. And the most taboo thing for a mage is to be approached by a warrior like Hogan. As the figures of the two were hidden, Wanda's eyes also flashed red. Under her eyes, Hogan's body was nowhere to hide. Asgard's illusion magic is indeed second to none, but under Wanda's power of chaos, it is not good enough. Although her power of chaos is not too strong now, Sunny is not Frigga either. After Hogan changed direction several times, Wanda's eyes were still fixed on him. Looking at her eyes, it was like looking at a jumping clown. A trace of anger emerged in his heart. After seeing that he had approached within 3 meters of the other party, Wanda was still staring at him, and Hogan sneered in his heart. "As a mage, you dare to let a warrior like me get close to you? How stupid." Chapter 189 Return to Asgard. Standing in the distance, Sunny looked at Wanda, who just let Hogan approach. She shook her head and showed a confident smile on her face. After all, she is just a little girl and doesn't have much combat experience. As one of the 4 warriors of Asgard, Hogan's combat ability is second only to Thor, the god of thunder. In her opinion, A wizard on the opposite side was approached within 1 meter by him, and there was almost no hope of a comeback. Thinking of this, she cast an illusion magic point. The real scene within a radius of 100 meters was covered up. Not only could outsiders not see the real scene here, but even the sound inside would not be transmitted. After doing all this, she looked at the place where the two fought with interest. On the other side. Looking at Wanda, who was close at hand. Hogan waved the dagger in his hand and chopped at the opponent. With a cruel smile on his face. Since he had made up his mind to take action, he would naturally not leave any room for maneuver. Go to hell. Boom. A low sound came. Sunny looked at the scene not far away, and her expression instantly became stiff. Wanda still maintained the previous posture at this time. The only difference was that she stretched her right hand forward at this time, and her expression did not change. Hogan, on the other hand, face down, the whole body has been deeply embedded in the concrete road under his feet. A trace of blood slowly seeped out from the gap between his body and the ground. After more than 10 seconds, his body was still motionless. Sunny, standing in the distance, stared at the other party's delicate figure. This is a mage. Fuck, Thor is not as strong as you. Seeing Wanda's gaze, she gradually came back to her senses, turned around and ran away. But before she ran 2 steps, Wanda's figure appeared in front of her. It has nothing to do with me, it's all. Wanda didn't listen to the other party's plan to quibble, and directly slapped her shoulder with a palm. Boom. After the loud noise, there was one more living specimen on the ground. Zuemo, who returned to the island of death, had not yet entered the Star Tower. He heard the ringing of his cell phone. Half an hour later, in a manor in Manhattan. Zuemo walked out of the space gate carrying a limp body. He threw it aside casually. So far, all the members of Asgard who came to Earth have gathered. Wanda, who was staring at them, stood up and came to Zuemo. Dear, these people. Relying on the power of chaos, she had learned the origins of these people and the purpose of coming to Earth from one of Hogan's men. After learning that these people were from the EC, she also showed a trace of worry on her face. Although she knew that Zuemo was very powerful, she was not sure about facing these legendary gods. Zuemo smiled and stroked her head gently. Okay, you are tired too. Go back and rest. Don't worry, I can handle these. Wanda was relieved to see that Zuemo's confidence was not fake. Okay, she raised her head and kissed Zuemo on the face. Then she turned around and opened a space door to leave. Watching the space door in front of her slowly close. Zuemo turned his head. He looked up at the sky and sighed. I was thinking before that I would try not to change the plot so that I could have some advantages in foresight. But in this situation, if I don't teach Odin a lesson, the other party will obviously not give up. When the rainbow bridge is repaired, it is the time for the other party to come to the Earth. It is natural for Wanda and the Death Island to deal with a small fish like Hogan. But if Odin comes and I happen to be away, things will be a bit troublesome. In this case. I can only solve this hidden danger in advance. After all, there is no reason to guard against thieves for 1,000 days. Thinking of this, he waved his hand lightly. A space door opened. Zuemo walked towards the space door, and at the same time, Hogan and others who were in a state of fainting behind him also floated up uncontrollably and followed Zuemo's figure into the space door together. Asgard. In Odin's palace. Heimdall stood below, looking at Odin sitting on the throne anxiously. Your Majesty, my eyes can no longer capture the figures of Hogan and others. I'm afraid they have encountered some accidents. Accident? Odin's face sank and he stood up from his chair. What accident is there? I'm afraid that kid has noticed it. He tightened the gun in his hand, thinking back to the young man who hurt him carelessly before, and a trace of anger surged in his heart again. In a moment, he suppressed the anger in his heart. How long will it take for the rainbow bridge to be repaired? Heimdall hesitated after hearing this. It will take at least half a year. Give the order to speed up the repair and try to complete it within 4 months. Odin issued an unquestionable order. The eternal fire, which is related to the prophecy of the Ragnarok of the gods, must not be left outside. At this time. A portal slowly opened in the hall. Zuemo walked out of it. Crash. Under Zuemo's telekinesis, Hogan and his men fell heavily to the ground, sliding down the smooth ground to Odin's feet. Little thief, you dare to come to me, return the Banshee Lorelei and the treasures she stole immediately, otherwise you can't leave intact today. Seeing Zuemo's figure, Odin showed a look of surprise on his face. He held Gungnir tightly in his hand, and a divine power sank from his feet into the ground of the Asgard point. With the entry of this energy point, a huge transparent light shield slowly enveloped Odin's Asgard point. Odin naturally remembered the scene of Zuemo escaping with Lorelei last time. He could tell at a glance that the ability was similar to Kamatage's teleportation spell. If he didn't find a way to restrain it, even if he could defeat the opponent could escape at any time with this ability. When the Asgard's shield was built, it was assisted by the Supreme Sorcerer at the time, which could restrain this ability. And with the defensive power of this shield, even if he wanted to break it by force, it would take at least a quarter of an hour. Feeling the shield gradually closing, Odin smiled. Zuemo naturally felt the other party's small movement. However, he did not stop it, but slowly walked towards Odin. What? I can't stand the most his others hurting my family. The other is threatening me. Unfortunately, you did both. At this point, Zuemo looked up at Odin, who stood up. In this case, I can only send you offline in advance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Conquering Odin. You little thief, you're talking too much. Odin had an angry look on his face when he heard Zuemo's words. A set of golden armor appeared on him. He immediately rushed towards Zuemo without hesitation. Heimdall on the side saw this and rushed forward to gather point. At this time Zuemo was already wrapped in the feather god armor. A casual wave. Heimdall, who rushed forward, flew out uncontrollably. He faced Odin with his bare hands, holding the spear of Gungnir. With the experience last time, Odin was not careless this time. Instead, he used all his strength to stab Zuemo with the magic spear in his hand. However, Zuemo's power was completely different from last time. After the last increase in mental power through Kaien Japan, the power only reached more than 10 million tons, and now his power, without relying on any increase, has reached 100 million tons if the amplitude of force is exerted through the body. Now, he has cultivated the Thunder Sword to great perfection and can increase his body's strength 36 times. In this case, his force can reach 3.6 billion tons, more than 300 times more powerful than before. And that's just physical strength. If the 1000 machine disc is used to aggregate 62 times the amplitude of telekinesis, the impact force can reach more than 6 billion tons. Even at this level, strength is no longer the most critical factor in determining victory or defeat. But this is also when the physical strength of the two is not much different. Judging from the situation of the last fight, although Odin was stronger than him at that time, he was not much stronger. The power of the Asaprotus, like Odin and Thor, mainly comes from their godhead, and the power of the godhead controlled by them. With or without the bonus of divine power, their strength is almost completely different. Just like after the god of thunder lost his power, his body was just the same as that of an ordinary person. And with the blessing of divine power, you can fight the Hulk hand to hand. The same is true for Odin in front of him. With the blessing of Odin's power, his physical strength can reach nearly 20 million tons. This kind of power is indeed a ceiling in this universe. Even Thanos did not dare to step into the 9 realms before Odin died. But this power is not enough for Zuemo now. Zuemo stretched out his hand and directly grasped the opponent's gun of Gungnir. Then he directly lifted Odin, who was holding the other side, and smashed it to the ground. Boom. There was a loud bang. The other party's body was embedded in the ground. However, for their strength, this kind of injury is almost no different from scratching an itch. Odin's body instantly ejected and slowly floated in the air. At this time, his face became very ugly. Although it didn't cause him any harm, it was extremely insulting. The majestic lord of the 9 realms suffered such humiliation at the hands of one person twice in a row, and the anger in his heart could no longer be contained. You little thief, suffer death. The angry Odin flashed his body and struck Zuemo with his bare hands. There was no way. At this time, Gungnir's gun was already in Zuemo's hand. Zuemo saw the opponent's figure appearing in front of him instantly and swung the gun in his hand towards the opponent like a stick. There was another loud noise. Odin's body had hit the far wall. This time is different from the one just now. Zuemo's power of hundreds of millions of tons burst out directly. The golden armor worn on Odin gradually turned into light spots and slowly floated away. As the armor disappeared, Odin's body fell from the wall at this time. Blood overflowed from his mouth and nose, as if it was free of charge. Even his eyes became a little blurry. Saw this scene. A look of surprise flashed across Zuemo's face. It seems like the attack was a bit harsh. According to his expectations, the current strength of the main body should be able to suppress Odin, but it is unlikely to kill the opponent. But he seemed to have overlooked one thing. Now Odin is only a few years away from the end of his life. For the Asaprotus, the longer they live, the stronger they become. But not the last few years of life. At this time, the end of life is approaching, and the body and the divine power in the body will begin to gradually decline. Until finally, the divine power completely disappeared, and the body also turned into ashes, after losing the support of strength. Seeing the other party's appearance, Zuemo thought for a moment. Lifting the opponent with one hand, he disappeared directly from the spot. In the soul enslavement space. Zuemo threw the other party's dying body to the ground. Instantly, a beam of light enveloped him. Nearly 20 seconds later, the light disappeared, and Zuemo already felt that he could easily control the other person's life. However, the other party still looked half dead. Zuemo stretched out his hand. A bottle of water of life appeared in his hand. According to the characteristics of the Asa clan, Odin's body strength is only slightly stronger than that of humans on Earth. This kind of thing that is useful to ordinary apprentices should be equally useful to him. Zuemo poured the water of life in his hand into the other person's mouth. A dead horse is treated as a living horse. If you hang up, hang up. If he hadn't died, he would have had one more subordinate who was the most powerful so far. Even if he failed, the final loss would only be 1,000 points, which was just a drizzle for him now. Zuemo's pull just now should have damaged the opponent's internal organs. As the water of life entered Odin's body, in a moment, the opponent's breathing gradually stabilized. Seeing this, Zuemo was delighted. It works. As time passed, half an hour later, Odin also woke up. As he mobilized the power in his godhead, his body's recovery ability was greatly improved. Until another hour later, Odin stood up from the ground. He saluted Zuemo respectfully. Master. Seeing this, Zuemo nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. In this way, everything is under his control. In the future, Odin will live when he should live, and when he should die, he will be put into the Star Tower to pretend to die. As for the situation that the opponent's life limit is approaching, it is not a problem at all. As long as the devouring technique is practiced to the planetary level, the lifespan can be increased tenfold. Now there are about 6 years left before his life limit. With such a long time, it is not difficult to break through to the planetary level. What's more, there is Zuemo, the master who cheats. This is even less of a problem. After giving instructions to each other, the two returned to the previous hall. At this time, Heimdall was still in a coma. Odin stepped forward and kicked him lightly. Heimdall woke up instantly. Standing up from the ground, he saw Zuemo standing not far away and roared, trying to rush towards him again. Stop. Chapter 191 News about other particles. Hearing Odin's shout, Heimdall paused for a moment. Lord God, he no need to say more. Odin raised his hand to stop him. The last incident was all a misunderstanding. He has agreed to return the eternal flame stolen by Lorelei. He will be our guest in Asgard from now on. Hearing this, Heimdall was surprised. After all, before he fainted, the two were still on edge. After waking up, after sleeping for a while, how did the situation change? And looking at the mess in the hall, it was obvious that the two had fought. But he didn't think much about it. The majesty accumulated by Odin for thousands of years made him obey the other party's orders unconditionally. Besides, after Zuemo left last time, Thor had already explained that this matter was indeed just a misunderstanding. It was just that Odin was hindered by his majesty as the lord of the 9 realms, and the eternal fire related to the prophecy of Ragnarok was stolen by Lorelei, which forced them to find Zuemo. Heimdall naturally wanted a peaceful Solution at the moment. As Odin removed the protective shield in Asgard. Thor, the god of thunder, rushed in with a large number of soldiers. The Asgard protective shield will only be opened when it is invaded by the enemy. The opening just now made Thor and others outside Asgard realize that some kind of accident had occurred in Asgard. However, after the protective shield was generated, even they could not enter it. They could only wait outside the protective shield. At this moment, the protective shield disappeared, and they rushed in immediately. In the hall. Thor looked at Zuemo, who was chatting and laughing with Odin, and his expression was stunned. He was a little overwhelmed for a while. Ever since Zuemo left with Lorelei last time. His father Odin seemed to have always hated the other party very much, so what was going on now? Seeing Thor coming in. Odin laughed. Thor, you're just in time. Give the order. I will hold a banquet in Asgard to entertain my best friend. No, Thor looked at Odin with a questioning look. Do as I say. After Odin reiterated, he turned around and sat down. Zuemo looked at Thor below. Hey, Thor, we meet again. 2 hours later, a grand banquet was held in the hall. Dozens of people sat at a long table that was more than 20 meters long. There were all kinds of delicacies on the table. At the banquet, Zuemo returned the eternal flame and the warlock's eye to Asgard in public. Of course, for him, it was just a matter of handing over from left hand to right hand. The eternal flame didn't matter. This thing could be born with energy, and what was returned was just a trace of fire. He could have as many of these things as he wanted. The warlock's eye returned to his storage ring after a moment. Odin, who was sitting at the first seat, drank the wine in the cup. He threw the cup on the ground. He stood up from his seat. There is one more thing to announce today. After attracting everyone's attention, he pointed to Zuemo and spoke. From now on, we two will call each other brothers. In Asgard, Zeus' orders are my orders. Hearing this, everyone at the banquet was in an uproar. It's no wonder that everyone was surprised. This situation is just as outrageous as in ancient times, when the emperor suddenly appointed an ordinary person as prime minister. Even Zuemo almost spit out the wine in his mouth after hearing it. This matter was not what he just ordered. It was entirely Odin's own decision. Of course, Odin naturally did not have any malice, but after all, he called Zuemo his master. If these people under him, especially Thor, called Zuemo brothers, what would it look like? And in this way, a lot of trouble can be avoided. But since he would say it now, he was sure that this decision would not be opposed by everyone. This was indeed the case. Under the prestige accumulated over thousands of years, these people just discussed it quietly for a while, and then agreed loudly. Only Thor looked incredulous. Father. Seeing him stand up, Odin laughed and stepped forward to grab him. Thor, come and meet your uncle. What? Hearing Odin ask him to call Zuemo uncle, his mouth opened wide, and his eyes were full of shock. Odin reached out and patted him on the head. What are you still standing there for? Call me. After experiencing the last incident, Thor's rebellious character had been restrained a lot. Under Odin's urging, he could only come to Zuemo and shout reluctantly, Uncle, uncle. After that, he turned around and ran out. Seeing that the matter was settled, Zuemo did not blame Odin. In this way, it would be much more convenient for him in the future. However, looking at Thor, whose face was flushed red as he left the hall, a smile appeared on his face. Anyone who suddenly had an uncle much younger than themselves would probably find it difficult to accept it for a while. Moreover, in Thor's eyes, Zuemo had a bit of the attribute of a love rival. The banquet lasted a whole day. After it was over, after Zuemo handed over the cultivation method to Odin, he came to Odin's treasure house alone. Of course, most of the things here have no effect on him, but that didn't stop him from looking at each piece with gusto. He reached out and took off a huge metal glove in front of him. The shape of the glove is almost identical to that of the Infinity Gauntlet in Thanos' hand. The only difference is that Thanos' one is only his left hand, while the one in his hand is his right hand. From this point of view, there should be two Infinity Gauntlets divided into left and right hands, and Odin may have collected Infinity Stones before. In the end, maybe for some reason, they were not gathered together. Zuemo put the gloves back on the shelf in front of him and continued walking towards the inside of the treasure house. Take a tour around. The things inside did not have any effect on him, but he did not show any disappointment. He regarded it as gaining more knowledge point in the main hall of the Immortal Palace. So, your father didn't even tell you about the other particles? Zuemo sat on the seat, looked at Odin standing opposite, and asked. That's right. Odin nodded respectfully. Seeing this, Zuemo could only sigh helplessly. After watching Thor second, he naturally knew that the Reality Stone, one of the Infinity Stones, the other particle, was buried by Odin's father. Or it wasn't until the intersection of the 9 realms that it connected to Greenwich and coincidentally entered Jane Foster's body. I originally hoped to find a burial location with Odin. Looking back now, it is clear that this idea has failed. In this case, Zuemo did not stay in Asgard any longer and directly opened a space door and left. Chapter 192 Entering the New World. Earth. Detroit, Michigan. On a remote and dilapidated road. Zuemo walked out of the portal. He naturally understood what happened from Hogan and the others. He also realized that Aval should be equipped with some security personnel. Among the people on the island. The most suitable one is obviously Solok. Solok's awakened ability has physical enhancement. Coupled with training, her strength has now reached the peak of advanced warriors. Combined with mental abilities, there is almost no weakness through the perception of the slave chip. The other party is at this position. Zuemo sensed the location of Solok. Turned and walked in a certain direction. In a dilapidated, abandoned factory. Solok stood on the edge of the roof of a building, staring at the bottom. In the dilapidated square covered with weeds below. A group of soldiers in military green camouflage uniforms, holding guns in their hands, surrounded by a middle-aged man. Solok's eyes fell on a bald man standing behind the soldiers. A soldier was putting a black collar on the man's neck. Seeing this, Solok showed an angry look on her face. She was about to jump down. But before she could move. A palm covered her shoulder. Solok was startled and turned her head suddenly while swinging her right hand behind her. Just as her right fist was about to hit the figure behind her, she also saw the figure standing behind her. It was Zuemo who came over. Her expression changed, and she quickly retracted her fist. Master, Solok hurriedly wanted to kneel on one knee, but was stopped by Zuemo behind her. He looked down. Seeing the scene below, his eyes moved slightly. This is Sentinel Special Service. Then herself, Solok explained. Through her explanation, Zuemo also understood the whole story. The Sentinel Special Service, which was destroyed by 2 years ago, has become active again. Although the information and scientific researchers of the Sentinel robots had all been packed up and taken away by themselves, but those congressmen relied on some of the remaining information. They re-established this organization. But this time they learned a little smarter. This organization went from being open to underground. Secretly capturing mutants before following apocalypse. Solok and Caliban formed an underground mutant organization, relying on Caliban's ability to sense the location of mutants, to sell mutant information. After joining Zuemo's men. They did not restrict Solok's freedom too much. It was not until the last time Solok returned to the station to check that she found that all the mutants in her previous organization, including her friend Caliban, had disappeared. After a trace, it was discovered that these people were captured by the Sentinel Special Service, and Caliban became their tool for finding mutants. After listening to her explanation, Zuemo looked at the bald middle-aged man standing behind the group of soldiers. Is this your friend Caliban? Solok nodded. Quick battle, quick decision. After Zuemo uttered a word, he took Solok through the portal and appeared below. Solok nodded, stretched out her right hand, and a purple lightsaber appeared in her hand and disappeared from the spot. Those soldiers had no time to react and were solved by Solok. In the end, only a middle-aged man who looked like the leader was left. Zuemo directly launched the soul-stealing technique. A moment later, Zuemo casually broke the man's neck and threw it aside. It seems that these people have learned to be smart. From the man's mouth, Zuemo only learned the information of a base of the Sentinel Special Service. The man didn't know the location of the headquarters, and even had a single line of contact with the upper level. Obviously, after the last time they were wiped out, these people even hid the location of the headquarters, but it is not difficult to find them out. He doesn't even need to do it himself. At this time, Solok led Caliban up. Hello, my name is Caliban. Thank you for your help. Caliban came up and thanked Zuemo. Zuemo turned around and looked at him up and down. The other party looked about 40 or 50 years old, with unusually pale skin and a body that looked like skin and bones, as if a gust of wind could blow him down. The mutant ability suppression collar that had just been put on his neck had been cut off by Salok. "You're welcome, you'd better thank Salok." After saying that, Zuemo turned his head and looked at Salok beside him. "Leave the Sentinel special service to others. There is something you need to do in the next period of time." "Okay, Master." Salok nodded. Naturally, she had no intention of resisting Zuemo's order. An hour later, Zuemo returned to the island of the dead. Salok had been sent to Aval by Hin. With her protection, Aval's safety no longer had to worry about. Caliban was brought back by him and handed over to Emma for arrangements, relying on his ability to sense the location of mutants within a certain range. It is not difficult to find the Sentinel special service. After all, there should be a lot of mutants imprisoned there. Zuemo looked up into the sky. After a few days, the Sky City has arrived on the island and is floating in the air a few hundred meters above the ground. Most of the Black Widows distributed all over the world have also gathered on the island. There are 7 or 8,000 people who have arrived so far. The island has also become lively. Some of the soldiers who went out on missions have also been called back. After Emma passed on the cultivation method, these people were divided into groups of 50, and these soldiers took over the guidance of cultivation. It only takes 1 or 2 years. These people will become the backbone of the island's power. The Green Goblin skateboard has also been officially put into production. Maybe after the Chirita army arrives a year later. There is no need to take action by myself, and these soldiers on the island can solve it independently. Seeing that everything on the island is on the right track. Zuemo flashed into the Star Tower in the training room. He took off his clothes and lay in the nutrition cabin. With the injection of nutrient solution, a trace of gentle energy began to flow into his body, slowly improving his strength. Feeling the improvement of his physical strength, Zuemo closed his eyes and started the dream walking technique. He did not choose to enter the Spider-Man world. Although the physical strength can successfully reach the 9th level of the star level in a year, if you want to successfully break through to the universe level, you need to improve the strength of the Beast God before that. But conservatively estimated, the improvement of the Beast God requires at least 10 immortal crystals. That is a full 1 billion points. In addition, by that time, the star-eating vine will almost reach the peak of the star level. He needs to buy metals to be promoted to the universe level, which will be a large expenditure of points. He must get points as soon as possible. In the Spider-Man world, there are not many channels to get points at present, so he can only choose to enter other worlds. Chapter 193 Basement. Some world. In a dark room. Zuemo slowly opened his eyes. His severe pain spread from all parts of the body. "It seems that I'm in a bad situation in this world. Just feel it a little bit." There were signs of swelling and bruises all over this body. After a moment, a look of surprise appeared on his face. "What's going on?" He didn't find the original owner's soul in this body. According to the past situation, after he used the dream walking technique to travel across, the soul of the original owner would be sealed in the original owner's sea of consciousness and would be in a dormant state. This was the first time he had encountered this situation. There is no soul in the original owner's sea of consciousness. There is only one possibility. The original owner is dead and the soul has left the body. And judging from his physical condition, it should take no more than an hour for him to die. He sat up from the ground with difficulty. Zuemo took a look at the surrounding environment. Looking at the surrounding layout, I should be in a small room similar to a basement. The room was in darkness. It was also through his mental power that he could understand the surrounding scene. The room he was in at this time was a place similar to a storage room located underground. In the room, there are only 3 sets of bedding spread in the corner. The remaining positions are filled with sundries. The mental power was released and spread towards the surroundings. For a moment, a look of surprise appeared on Zuemo's face. Judging from what he felt, he seemed to be in the basement of a certain villa. There was not a single figure in the villa, and judging from the thick dust on the items in the villa room, the villa has obviously been abandoned for a long time. The entire villa was extremely quiet. There is no sound at this time. Under his perception, Two figures, a man and a woman, walked gently toward the villa. After a while, the two slowly opened the door to the basement and walked down the stairs. Through his mental perception, Zuemo could clearly sense that the two of them breathed a sigh of relief at the same time after closing the basement door. Seeing this, Zuemo looked thoughtful. "Brother, are you awake?" A young man who looked similar to him walked in front. After walking down, he fiddled with the corner a few times. The incandescent light on the roof turned on. At a glance, he saw Zuemo sitting up, with a look on his face. A look of surprise. He walked forward in 2 steps and helped him upright. Following the boy was a girl with 2 golden braids. When the girl saw Zuemo sitting up, a hint of joy appeared on her face. "Zu, how do you feel?" Seeing the expressions on their faces, Zuemo forced a smile on his face. "Don't worry, I'm fine." It can be inferred from what he just said that the young man among the 2 people should be his biological brother. This can be seen from the somewhat similar appearance of the 2 people. As for the identity of this woman, he couldn't guess based on the information he had obtained so far, but I think the relationship between the 2 of them should be good friends. Although the original owner has died and is now in a state of death, these are not a big problem for him. As long as this body is still there. A simple drop of water of life can quickly restore injuries in the body. Here's Zuemo's answer. The woman suddenly thought of something and reached out to pat the young man. "Xiaoyan, take out the medicine quickly and let your brother take it." "Oh, well." After hearing this, Zuyan reacted, took off the backpack he was carrying on his back, took out some anti-inflammatory and analgesic medicine, and helped Zuemo take it. When the girl saw this, she felt a lot more at ease. He also took off the backpack behind him. "Take out some trampled bread from inside. We went to 3 supermarkets and only found this," she said with a sad look on her face. Then he divided the bread between the 2 of them and finally took out a can of lunch meat from his backpack, opened it and handed it to Zuemo. "You're injured. Eat more so you can recover faster." Looking at the bread in his hand, Zuyan had a look of anger on his face. "Those people are simply too much. We kindly took them into the shelter. Not only did they drive us out, they also beat you like this." Hearing this, Zuemo's expression changed. Shelter? Could this world also be a wasteland world? This thought flashed through his mind. Faced with the food handed over by the girl, Zuemo did not refuse, but took it directly. Fortunately, the outer packaging of the bread was intact, so he didn't pay too much attention. With his current physical condition, even performing magic would place a huge burden on his body. For the time being, it's better to recover from the injury first. This body had obviously not eaten for a while, and his strong hunger made him eat even a piece of bread with gusto. After eating these things, his body also gradually regained some strength. Because among the 3 people, except Zuemo, the other 2 only ate a piece of bread less than the size of a palm. They had no intention to speak, and Zuemo had no chance to learn about this world from the 2 people. It took more than half an hour. Zuyan and the girl both heard a sound of even breathing. Obviously, going out to find food made them both physically and mentally exhausted. Seeing that they had both fallen asleep, Zuemo then tested the speed of time in the 2 worlds. Fortunately, the time ratio was also 1:1. He took out a bottle of water of life from his pocket and drank it directly. Then he closed his eyes. A warm current flowed slowly in his body. After the warm current flowed through the injured part, the pain of the injured part disappeared almost within a few seconds. With waves of comfort coming, Zuemo slowly fell asleep. Early the next morning. Zuemo was awakened by a rustling sound. He opened his eyes and saw Zuyan and Lisa ready to go. Lisa was naturally the girl with 2 golden braids. "What are you 2 doing?" Hearing the voice, Zuyan noticed that Zuemo had woken up. The light in the room was powered by a large battery in the corner. There was no way to recharge it after it ran out. So, unless there were special circumstances, the room was dark. "Brother, you're awake." Hearing the voice, Zuyan realized that Zuemo had woken up. "You rest assured and recover. The 2 of us are going to go to some supermarkets far away to see if we can find more food. I'll go with you." Zuemo stood up from the ground and moved his hands and feet. In the cuffs that the 2 could not see, 10 rings appeared directly on his arms and then disappeared as waves of power surged in his body. He wanted to let out a long howl. Chapter 194 A Quiet Place. With the help of the faint light, the two saw Zuemo standing up from the ground. No, brother, how could it be possible? Seeing this scene, Zuyan's face was stunned. He was very clear about Zuemo's injuries. Judging from the situation yesterday, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was dying. Before he went out to find medicine, he even doubted whether he could support him until he came back. But now he recovered in just one night. Thinking of this, he hurried to the corner after a while of operation. The lights in the room came on again. He didn't look at Zuemo standing 2 meters away. He took 2 steps to the ground beside him, picked up the medicine Zuemo had taken yesterday, and looked at it carefully in his hand. No, this medicine is fine. Brother, how do you feel? Putting the medicine in his hand on the ground, he came to Zuemo and reached out to touch Zuemo's wrist with a worried look. Seeing the other party's action, Zuemo's face showed a hint of surprise. You? No Chinese medicine? No, then. What are you doing, Zuemo shook off the other person's hand speechlessly. No, I just heard that people who have a last moment of lucidity will have cold hands and feet. Zuyan said embarrassingly. Get lost, okay, in a hurry. The two spoke Chinese, and Lisa looked at them in confusion. But she gradually reacted. Although she couldn't understand what the two were saying, from the way Zuemo stood up and the expressions of the two, it was obvious that Zuemo's body had recovered a lot. Both of them firmly opposed Zuemo's idea of going out with them to find food. In desperation, Zuemo picked up a table leg as thick as an arm and broke it easily. The two looked at her in a daze. Damn, supernatural power. Yang picked up the broken table leg, tried it himself, and looked at Zuemo with shining eyes. I don't know what's going on. After waking up in the morning, I felt that I had endless power. Zuemo made up a reason casually. Regardless of whether the two believed it or not. Zuyan was stunned for a moment when he heard the words, and then he excitedly picked up the medicine that Zuemo had taken last night. His face showed a tangled look, but he made a decision in almost an instant. Wealth and honor are sought in danger. Let's fight. After saying that, he quickly took out the dose that Zuemo had taken last night and drank it directly with his head tilted back, watching the other party's smooth operation. Zuemo did not stop it. It was just some anti-inflammatory and analgesic drugs. As long as it was not excessive, it would not harm the body. He naturally knew what the other party was thinking, but the other party was destined to be disappointed. After taking the medicine, Zuyan's face showed a trace of longing. He just wanted to let Lisa beside him take it, but after thinking about it, he carefully put the medicine back into the backpack. Now he was not sure about the effect of this thing, so he did not rashly give it to the other party. Let's go. He took a deep breath, suppressed the joy on his face, stood up and walked towards the door. Lisa, who was standing by, looked at Zuyan's inexplicable operation with a face full of question marks. Obviously, the other party could not understand his train of thought at all. Walking out of the basement. Zuemo looked at the scene outside. After seeing the scene outside, he had only one thought in his mind. Quiet, unexpectedly quiet, looking at the trees outside and the temperature. He easily judged that it should be in spring, April or May. But there was not even a bird singing in the trees around the villa. However, Zuemo was not surprised. There are many types of zombie viruses. It is not surprising that it can infect animals and birds. Under the leadership of Zuyan, the three walked eastward along the road in front of the villa. Zuemo opened his mental power, spreading around. The location of the villa seems to be in a wealthy area halfway up the mountain. There are a total of more than a dozen villas. No trace of zombies or living people was seen within this range. But there were other discoveries. Zuemo focused his telekinesis on a villa less than 500 meters away from the three people. Inside the villa, a monster that looked a bit like a mummy was lying on the carpet in the villa's lobby. The monster was very large, nearly 3 meters tall, with a black gray skin, like dry bark, slender limbs, especially forelimbs, no eyes on the head, only a mouth covering the entire face. The moment he saw the monster, Zuemo was stunned. This monster seemed familiar, combined with a very quiet environment around. A quiet place. This thought flashed through Zuemo's mind. Thinking of this, He tried to cough. Hearing this sound. Zuyan and Lisa's bodies suddenly stopped moving and then looked at Zuemo with horrified eyes. Zuemo ignored the expressions of the two and sensed it through telekinesis. Sure enough. After he spoke, the monster lying on the carpet of the villa seemed to be stimulated by something and jumped up directly. Its mouth opened like a chrysanthemum, and it let out a roar. With a leap, it broke through the door and rushed towards him. Seeing this scene, Zuemo was sure that this was the world of the Land of Silence. After scanning the range again with his mental power, Zuemo sighed lightly. It seemed that there were not many of these things. There was only this monster within a radius of 1 kilometer. In this way, even if all the monsters in this world were cleared, it would probably be difficult to reach 1/10 of the zombie world. But he was also satisfied. Conservatively estimated that this wave would earn at least 500 million or 600 million points. These points were enough to solve his urgent needs. As for whether he could deal with these monsters, Zuemo had no doubts. This thing could be solved with a gun. In a one-on-one fight, it was estimated that it would be difficult to hold on for a minute under the hands of the skeleton soldiers. He was a little confused. Such a weak monster should not be difficult to deal with the help of modern steel torrents. It should be easy to clean up. After all, this thing is too sensitive to sound. It can hear the slight sound from 500 meters away. If it is blown like a train whistle, it may attract all the monsters in the city. At that time, a missile can wipe them out. After thinking for a long time, Zuemo could only blame it on the reason he didn't know. Zuyan and Lisa, who were walking in front, stayed in place. After seeing Zuemo make a sound. They rushed up and pulled him up and ran towards the basement. However, before the two of them pulled Zuemo a few steps away. The monster had already appeared in the sight of the three people. It rushed towards the three people at a very fast speed. Chapter 195 Hunting Time. Looking at the monster that pounced on them, Zuyan and Lisa's expressions changed. It's over. Because the three were driven out of their own shelter, they didn't even have a gun in their hands. They went out yesterday and tried to find some, but they didn't find any. Originally, they wanted to look for it today, but now it seems that they can only wait until the next life. It's obviously impossible to deal with this kind of monster with bare hands. Zuemo, who was standing between the two people, looked at this monster at close range at this time. There was only one thought in his mind. It looks so disgusting, especially after the mouth opened. Seeing this, Zuemo did not hesitate. He broke free from the hands of the two people. He clenched his right fist and swung it at the monster less than 3 meters away from the few people. The 10 rings on his arm instantly flew out with a golden light, knocking the monster away dozens of meters, and then instantly returned to Zuemo's arm. The two people on the side only saw a golden light shooting out from Zuemo's hand and returning. The monster that was close at hand had already fallen to the ground dozens of meters away and turned into a pool of mud. Obviously, the monster's internal tissues had been completely shattered. Seeing this scene, the two rubbed their eyes in unison. Damn, I knew it. Zu Yan's face showed ecstasy. Brother, you have awakened your superpowers, right? In his excitement, he almost roared, but he still kept a trace of reason. If he really roared, he didn't know how many monsters would be attracted. I guess so. Looking at Zuyan's excitement, Zuemo nodded speechlessly. At this time, Lisa also came forward and touched Zuemo's arm. After finding that there was nothing special, she looked up at Zuemo with a surprised face. What did you just shoot out? Zuemo did not answer her question, but looked in one direction. Another one. In his perception, another monster in the north broke into his telepathic perception range. Obviously attracted by the noise here. It seems that this thing is more sensitive to sound than expected. What? Yan and Lisa's faces changed when they heard this, but seeing Zuemo's calm face, they felt more at ease. However, the fear of monsters accumulated over a long period of time. The two still carefully hid behind Zuemo. In a moment. The second monster has appeared in their sight. Seeing this, Zuemo waved his hand lightly, and a skeleton soldier holding a bone knife appeared in the middle of the two and rushed towards the monster in the distance. This is just an ordinary skeleton soldier that has not been strengthened by hellfire. The height is only over 2 meters, but facing a monster that is taller than it, the skeleton soldier did not have a trace of cowardice. He waved the bone knife in his hand and leaped towards the monster, the bone knife in his hand, chopped at the monster's waving forelimbs as fast as lightning. The two passed each other. The monster staggered to the ground and the last broken forelimb fell on the ground full of weeds. Feeling the pain from the broken limb, the monster let out an angry roar. But just as the roar was halfway out, the bone knife with a cold light had already chopped towards it again. The skeleton soldiers themselves had no problem with endurance. After landing, they did not stop at all and jumped directly towards it. Perhaps it was because they were at the top of the food chain for a long time. The fighting instinct of these monsters has degenerated. The monster, who was only concerned with roaring, did not expect the opponent's next attack to come so quickly. In a hurry, he could only use the remaining forelimb to block the bone knife. Like cutting tofu, the monster's other long arm was directly cut off by the bone knife. The next situation can be imagined. The monster, who lost 2 forearms, could only become a plaything of the skeleton soldiers. Zhu Yan and Lisa, who were standing in the distance, watched the skeleton soldiers dismember the monster into pieces in a few moves, and a trace of fear flashed in their eyes. Damn, where did this monster come from? This is much more ferocious than the original monster. In the horrified eyes of the two, the skeleton soldiers walked towards Sana. Seeing this scene, the two people's faces changed. It was obviously too late to run now, and they could only hope that Zuemo could deal with him. In the eyes of the two, the skeleton soldiers walked to the side of Zuemo and stood still. Seeing this, it took a moment for the two to come back to their senses. Zhu Yan stretched out his finger and gently poked Zuemo's arm. Brother, this thing is controlled by you. Seeing Zuemo nodded, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief. Why didn't you say it earlier? You made us worry for a long time. Zhu Yan muttered, carefully came to the side of the skeleton soldier, and carefully circled around him. He looked the skeleton up and down. He was not satisfied with just looking at it, and finally he even reached out and touched the skeleton soldier. It's strange, this thing is just a skeleton. How can it move? On the other side, Lisa glanced at Zuemo obscurely. Before, it could be attributed to some changes in his body, but this summoning of the skeleton was a bit unreasonable. She thought of a possibility. Could it be that the other party was possessed by some evil spirit lich or something like that? But after looking at Zhu Yan, who was touching the skeleton everywhere, she did not say this. Zuemo naturally understood that this would easily arouse their suspicion. But he didn't care. He didn't have time to play house with them. Cleaning up the monsters in this world as soon as possible and earning points is the real business at this time. A gurgling sound came from Zhu Yan's stomach. Should we go find something to eat first? Zhu Yan covered his stomach and asked in a low voice. Zuemo turned his head and looked at him. Of course, he smiled at him. Zuemo's body floated in the air. The dark book slowly appeared in front of him. Endless black fog spread around, and in a short while, it covered an area of 4 or 5 kilometers. Then, black shadows began to flash in the black fog. The neat sound of horse hooves came from inside. The endless army of undead slowly walked out of the black fog. As the huge sound spread out, monsters began to gather around the periphery. However, after the monsters gathered, they felt the majestic aura emanating from this side, and their bodies trembled, and they wanted to retreat and escape. Although the monster's IQ was not high, under the instinct of the creatures it could still sense the dangerous aura here. But the army of undead obviously would not let them go. Before they retreated, they were nailed to the ground by several bone arrows. Half an hour later, the black fog gradually dissipated. Zhu Yan and Lisa looked at the endless sea of skeletons within their sight, and they were stunned for a while. In the sky, dozens of bone dragons that were several times larger than passenger planes were constantly circling. On the heads of several bone dragons, there was a lich holding a staff in his hand. Zuemo sat on the back of a bone dragon. Looking at the small black dots in the distance that kept gathering in this direction. A smile appeared on his face. Next, it's hunting time. Chapter 196, The Disappearing Army. Until they stood on the roof of the Empire State Building, the tallest building in New York, Zhu Yan and Lisa still felt like they were dreaming. Even Zhu Yan, who was a bit nervous, realized at this moment that his brother was a little abnormal. He glanced at Zuemo from time to time. As the air raid alarm sounded. All the monsters in New York rushed towards the building. However, the building was already surrounded by a large army of undead who were ready for battle. Those monsters were almost killed as soon as they showed their heads. Zuemo sat on a small bench that he had brought from somewhere, guarding a barbecue grill. The grill pan on the grill was filled with various seafood, shrimps, oysters, squid. Due to the rampage of monsters, all animals that could make sounds on land had become extinct. Only these delicacies in the sea were not affected. These things made a sizzling sound on the grill pan. The aroma spread across the roof. This aroma instantly brought Zuyan and Lisa back to their senses. After thinking for a moment, Zuyan still mustered up the courage to come up. "Who are you?" He stared at Zuemo and asked. Zuemo turned over the things on the baking tray and raised his head. "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that your brother is indeed dead, but he died from the injuries on his body." Hearing this, Zuyan and Lisa beside him changed their faces at the same time. They didn't doubt each other's words. After all, they knew very well that according to the original owner's injuries at the time, the chance of survival was not great. Before, it could be attributed to the mutation of the body and the awakening of the ability to recover. Now it seems that it is just their own fantasy. Moreover, according to the ability of the man in front of him, there is no need to lie to the two of them. They can easily get rid of the two. Zuyan wiped the tears from his eyes. "Why don't you just hide it from us and tell the truth, Zu?" Emo smiled softly when he heard it. "What's the point? You have the right to know the truth. You two will no longer worry about survival in the future. This is the reward for occupying this body. No need. If you really want to repay me, just give me some weapons." Zuyan showed a resolute look on his face. "Are you going to avenge your brother?" Looking at his expression, Zuemo immediately guessed his intention. Thinking of this, he stretched his right hand into the portal, and when he came out, he had a box of beer in his hand. "Even if you want to go, you have to fill your stomach first. If you die there by accident, you can still be a full ghost." Hearing this, Zuyan was silent for a moment, and then sat down opposite him. Lisa, who was standing next to him, heard the words, and sat down like Zuyan. She opened a can of beer, and took a big gulp. "I'll go with you later." The whole meal took 2 hours after such a long time. Almost all the monsters in New York have been cleared. Zuemo opened the system panel and checked it. The points increased by about 10 million. Not bad, Zu. Emo nodded with satisfaction. It seems that the number of monsters is much more than he expected. Next, it is a long-term project. Zuemo opened the portals to several continents. Under the leadership of the Lich King, the undead army began the journey of clearing monsters. Conservatively estimated, it only takes 1 month to clear all the monsters on the earth. After all, these undead creatures don't know how to get tired, and they don't rest for 24 hours a day. After dispersing the undead army to various locations on the earth, Zuemo turned his head and looked at the two people behind him. "Okay, next we can go for revenge. You two follow me." After saying that, he took the lead and walked into the portal that was opened on the side. The two looked at the portal curiously and then stepped directly in. After passing through the portal, they were already standing in an armory that was more than 1,000 square meters in size. "Whatever you need, take it yourself, Zu." Emo gave an order and disappeared from the spot. This arsenal is located in a certain army base in the United States. The reason why he brought them here to choose weapons was to investigate where the troops and soldiers had gone. In theory, although these rampant monsters are not weak, but facing a regular army, they should not have much advantage. There are obviously other reasons for turning the entire earth into a silent place. Flashed outside the arsenal. The base was also unusually quiet at this time. The dormitory and the base. It was empty at this time. Zuemo walked into a room. The furnishings and beds in the room were unusually neat except for a thick layer of dust on them, but there were no traces of daily necessities in the room. And there were no soldiers' bodies in the base. I think the soldiers in the base should have left in a hurry after receiving a certain order. Walked around the base. Except that the electronic and communication equipment were completely damaged. No other special features were found. Zuemo was aware of the damage to the electronic equipment. As far as he knew, these monsters would emit a special pulse that would damage all the surrounding electronic equipment. The only places on Earth where electronic equipment could be found were probably on ships and some small islands. After all, these monsters would not swim in the water. The safest places were probably those ships and small islands, and he was sure that most of the surviving population in the world was also located in these two locations. Back to the armory. The two had already picked out their equipment. At this time, they were fully armed. Bulletproof vests, tactical helmets, pistols, rifles, sniper rifles, grenades. The backpacks on their backs also contained several large boxes of bullets. Zuyan was better after Lisa was burdened with these. It was already very difficult for her to even stand still without falling. And Zuyan was standing next to a small howitzer that was more than half a person tall. From the look of it, it seemed that he was thinking about how to take the howitzer away. Looking at the two people, Zuemo sighed. The monsters in New York have been cleared out, so there is no need for so many weapons. Hearing this, Zuyan shook his head. Without external enemies, the next time is internal struggle. Those humans are not much easier to deal with than monsters. Hearing this, Zuemo looked up at the other party. What the other party said was not wrong. After the monsters are cleared out, what will be faced next is a society without order, and it is indeed necessary to collect more weapons. Thinking of this, Zuemo opened a portal to the villa where they had hidden before. Said generously, "I'll give you half an hour, move as you like." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Revenge. Half an hour later, Zuemo looked at the living room filled with various weapons, and his face was speechless. He stood next to a dozen cannonballs as high as a man placed in front of the window. "I can understand the rest. If you put this thing here, aren't you afraid of an accident that will send you to heaven?" "That's right." When Zuyan heard this, he also reacted and quickly pushed the shells back carefully. The door of a villa a few kilometers away from the villa where they previously hid. The three people walked out of the portal. At this time, Zuyan and Lisa each held a handful of microflush in their hands under Zuemo's persuasion. The two still didn't come over with sniper rifles on their backs, but as a supplement, each of them has a few more grenades of various types. Yan looked at the familiar villa in front of him with a look of sadness on his face. "Before those monsters came, we know my family still had some money. On a whim, I built this doomsday shelter. Unexpectedly, it saved the lives of our two brothers. It's a pity that my parents don't live here anymore, and now I'm the only one left." Having said this, there was a hint of sadness on his face. Lisa saw this and reached out to pat him on the shoulder. Zuyan wiped the tears from his eyes and then calmed down. After all, he is a person who has struggled to survive in the apocalypse for more than half a year, and his psychological quality is still good. Otherwise, he would have collapsed long ago. He looked at the villa with a sneer on his face. "Is my shelter so easy to steal?" After saying that, he took the lead and walked to a doghouse in the backyard of the villa. He reached out and flipped up the top of the kennel, revealing a pipe hidden in the kennel. "This is one of the 8 vents in the shelter." After saying that, he took out a tear gas bomb from his body, pulled the tab, and threw it directly in. "After thinking about it, I felt that one was not enough to relieve my anger, so I threw 2 more in succession, and then blocked the opening of the ventilation duct with something." Next, he walked around the villa and blocked all the hidden vents in the underground shelter. Holding the macro punch tightly in his hand, he came to the entrance of the villa to the underground passage and squatted down. Seeing this, Zuemo's telepathy shrouded downwards. The shelter is located more than 30 meters underground. It covers an area of more than 200 square meters divided into upper and lower floors. There are all kinds of facilities inside. There are not only living rooms, bedrooms, and bathrooms, but also various supporting rooms such as entertainment rooms, gyms, and independent cinemas. There is also a storage room with a large amount of food and water, as well as an independent power supply and heating system. Of course, according to Zuemo's ability, he could directly get rid of the people inside point, but he didn't do that point. It's best to leave the matter of revenge to their own devices. It seems like this shelter of yours must have cost a lot of money, right? Certainly, Zu Yan nodded. It cost more than 100 million US dollars at that time. In the shelter, Bob was lying comfortably on the sofa in the living room. He also held a glass of Lafite from 1982 in his hand. I couldn't help but thank Zu Yan and the others who contributed to the shelter again. How could I have lived such a comfortable life if it hadn't been for those idiots who had such a holy mother's heart? At this time, another man came up from downstairs. Bob, what do you think I found in the warehouse? Top quality Iberian ham. He placed the delicate box in his hand on the table and opened it. I have to say, those little bastards really know how to enjoy themselves. This ham alone is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are all advantageous to us now, aren't they? Bob took a sip of the red wine in his hand and answered with a smile. Of course, we can taste it for those little bastards tonight. After saying that, Bud carried the ham and walked towards the kitchen nearby. At this time, a thick plume of smoke billowed from various vents in the ceiling. In just a few seconds, it filled the entire room. Fake, what's going on? Bud walked into the kitchen and ran out in a hurry. A dark-skinned middle-aged woman also ran out of the bedroom nearby. Damn bastards, what the hell are you two doing? The middle-aged woman covered her mouth and ran out angrily. As soon as the words fell, tears and snot began to flow out uncontrollably from several people. Oops, it's tear gas. Bob let out a scream and then ran towards the exit of the shelter. However, halfway through, he turned around and returned to the corner of the living room, holding a shotgun in his hand, and then ran towards the door again. At this time, the entire shelter was filled with tear gas. The first floor of the villa. Zu Yan looked at the door in front of him and heard the sound of footsteps. He looked at Lisa beside him and hugged the gun tightly. For a moment, Bud and the black woman ran out of the door almost simultaneously. At this time, their eyes were red and they could hardly see what was going on around them. Seeing this, Zu Yan pulled the trigger towards Bud. Bang! After a gunshot, Bud screamed and got his lunchbox. When Lisa saw Zu Yan shooting, she thought of the slap the woman had slapped her in the face before, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes. She followed Zu Yan and pulled the trigger. However, she seemed not familiar with firearms. Under the recoil of the gun, the muzzle of her gun tilted upwards at the same time. She pulled the trigger tightly with force in her hand. In a few seconds, the magazine was emptied by her. The middle-aged woman opposite was shot into a sieve by her. Seeing this, Zu Yan looked at Lisa in surprise. He muttered in his heart, women are still so cruel. The middle-aged woman was hit by 3 or 4 bullets in the face, and her skull was blown away. It was horrible. But he retracted his gaze in an instant and pulled Lisa to hide aside again. There are a total of 3 people in this shelter. In addition to these 2, there is also the most cunning one. And he remembered clearly that these people had guns in their hands. Although he was not sure whether the other party would come out with guns in this situation, he did not take it lightly. Besides, the gunshots above could not be heard by the remaining person. The other party was likely hiding in the stairs, waiting for an opportunity to move. Until waiting for a minute point, the last person did not appear at the door, but they were not in a hurry. At this time, the smoke of tear gas had spread to the exit. After staying in the smoke for a long time, the other party was much more anxious than himself. His guess was not wrong. Bob, who was hiding in the corridor, finally opened his eyes and saw that the tear gas had spread. He could not wait any longer. He gritted his teeth, took off his clothes, and threw them outside. At the moment of the gunshot, he jumped out. Just as he was about to shoot, he felt a bump under his feet. He lowered his head and saw from the corner of his eye that he was stepping on an anti-infantry mine. Fuck. He only had time to leave this last word before he was shattered into a blood mist after a loud explosion. After dealing with all 3 people, Zu Yan and the other man cheered. He turned around and looked around. But he found that Zuemo's figure had disappeared. At this time, Zuemo has left the world of the Silent Land. The Lich Kings were responsible for clearing the monsters, so there was no need for him to keep an eye on that world all the time. He naturally traveled directly to other worlds. Chapter 198 Pandora, Avatar. Pandora Point in a space capsule in a forest. Ah. They kidding me? A total of 3 avatars were cultivated, 2 died, and they haven't returned for several years. Has the security in America become so bad? The one who died at least has a twin crippled brother to replace him. What about this one in front of us? A middle-aged woman in a white coat with short brown curly hair was furious at the assistant, Professor Grace. The higher-ups asked us to find a solution ourselves. The assistant lowered his head and whispered, "Find a solution? How do we find a solution? These avatars are cloned, based on human genes. They are of no use to others except for the person who can use them." Professor Grace slapped the table hard. At this time a figure with a body length of nearly 3 meters and blue skin lying on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. It was Zuemo, who had just crossed over. The moment he woke up, he felt that something seemed wrong with his body. He sat up suddenly from the bed. Zuemo lowered his head and looked at his body. What caught his eyes was a blue butt. "This is, I'm a Smurf." His action attracted the attention of Professor Grace and his assistant. Seeing Zuemo sitting up, Professor Grace was stunned and then looked at the assistant. The assistant was also stunned. Seeing the professor's gaze, he quickly turned over the information in his hand and carefully checked it. "That's right. The information sent from the headquarters is indeed this avatar." After saying that, she looked at Zuemo, who was looking around again. "Are you Mr. Zuemo?" "Yes, it's me." Zuemo nodded. Through telekinesis, he has figured out his own situation. "Avatar," he muttered in his heart. At this time, he also realized why he felt something was wrong. After waking up, although the body of the avatar looks somewhat similar to that of humans overall, the difference is not small. First of all, there is a difference in size. Avatars are nearly 3 meters tall and have extremely strong muscles. Moreover, avatars have tails, plus the braid behind their necks, that can connect nerves. Natural feelings cannot be the same as humans. After realizing this, he stood up and walked to the door of the space capsule, opened the door and walked out. There were towering trees everywhere, with vines as thick as arms winding between the trees, and all kinds of strange shrubs on the ground, none of which were familiar to him. However, these shrubs have one thing in common, that is, they look very beautiful. Looking at this beautiful scene in front of him, Zuemo also exclaimed in his heart. In the space capsule. Professor Grace looked at Zuemo, who walked out and gave an order to the assistant, "Contact the headquarters to see if the information is wrong." After that, she lay down in a device similar to a nutrition cabin next to her. After a moment, an avatar who was barely visible as a woman lying on the side stood up and walked behind Zuemo outside. "Welcome to Pandora." Half an hour later, the two of them returned to the space capsule. After Zuemo was familiar with the common sense of Pandora. The assistant saw this. He carefully looked at Zuemo and then pulled Grace aside. "Professor, I have repeatedly confirmed with the headquarters that the original gene of this avatar is indeed dead, and there is no other person named Zuemo at the base." Hearing this, Professor Grace's expression moved, and she looked at Zuemo in surprise. "Who are you, Zuemo?" Heard the conversation between the two clearly. He also understood why he entered the body of this avatar directly after coming here. It turned out that the self in this world no longer existed. And this avatar was cultivated with the genes of his own isotope. Under the dream walking technique, he entered the body of this avatar naturally. Hearing the professor's question, Zuemo answered calmly, "Haven't I already said that? My name is Zuemo. I'm 23 years old this year, and I graduated from and then signed up for the Avatar project." Listening to him easily telling his life story, the professor and the assistant were even more confused. "What on earth is going on, Professor?" Grace muttered. The experience the other party described was exactly the same as the one recorded in their materials. In addition, only the gene owner can control the cloned avatar, so it is very likely that this is the real person in front of her at this time. The assistant next to her came to her side. "Professor, do you think it is possible that some kind of mutation occurred during the cloning, and his own memory was also copied?" Grace's face paused when she heard this. "It's not impossible at present. There is only this possibility. Thinking of this, Grace stepped forward. Second. Lieutenant Zhu, welcome to join the Pandora Biological Research Group. Zhu. Emma heard this, and a hint of a hidden smile flashed in his eyes. The original owner's information he just mentioned was naturally what he saw from the two people through telekinesis. He described the above truthfully and made up the missing information, which made him get away with it smoothly. He originally planned to leave here directly. But after trying it, he found that he couldn't cast magic in this body at all. This discovery made his face change at that time. After casting the dream walking technique, his only reliance was magic. But obviously, this avatar's body is naturally insulated from magic. Without being able to cast magic, he couldn't even take out the 10 rings in the Dark God book. Now the only thing he can rely on is the mental power he can exert now. The only good news is the avatar's body is much stronger than that of a human. The mental power exerted naturally is also much stronger than that of an ordinary human. He roughly estimated that the current mental power is about 4,000 kilograms, barely reaching the standard of a high-level warrior at this time. Two blue figures walked in from outside. Seeing Zuemo sitting there adapting to his body. The two walked up together. Hello, my name is Jack. This is Gnome. We are all newcomers who have just arrived on Pandora. Zuemo uttered 2 words briefly. He looked at Jack's face for a second. If he remembered correctly, this man named Jack was the protagonist in Avatar who finally abandoned his human identity and became a Navi. Okay, kids, have a good rest today. Tomorrow morning we will extract specimens from the jungle 100 kilometers away. Professor Grace clapped her hands, attracted everyone's attention, and then spoke. Obviously, according to the age of Avatar, the 3 were babies who were less than a day old. Chapter 199 Mineral Resources. The next morning. Zuemo slowly woke up. The power of this avatar body has reached the level of a quasi-warrior. It can start to absorb cosmic energy. Last night, he directly practiced the genetic energy cultivation method. The first time practicing, the body cells are in a state of hunger and thirst, which can generally greatly improve the strength. This is indeed the case. After a night, this body has undergone earth-shaking changes and directly reached the peak of a primary warrior in terms of cultivation. The talent of Avatar is obviously above that of humans, and the time difference between this world and the original world is about 3 to 1. 1 day in the Marvel world, 3 days in this world. As far as he knows, there are a lot of rare minerals on this planet. He plans to investigate. If there are 1 or 2 minerals needed for the evolution of the star-devouring vine, he will make a lot of money. Just to evolve from the star level to the universe level, it takes more than 200 million points to exchange for the minerals needed for the star-devouring vine. If he could find a part of it on this planet, he could just exchange it for dimensional shuttle and bring the star-devouring vine to absorb it. Anyway, he would need to exchange this ability sooner or later, otherwise relying on the dream walking technique alone would have too many restrictions. It would be more appropriate to use the dream walking technique when improving strength in the nutrient chamber. A moment later, a Samson transport plane landed on the open space in front of the space capsule. After the transport plane stopped steadily. 3 figures, 2 men and 1 woman, walked down from above. One of the figures sitting in a wheelchair was naturally the human body of the protagonist Jack, and the other man was the last of the 3 avatars. Norm, an expert in biology. After several people greeted each other, finally, the woman with long hair, wheat-colored skin, and a plump figure stretched out her hand to Zuemo. Hello, my name is Chudi, and I'm the driver of your operation, Zuemo. His words were as concise as ever at this time. Professor Grace came out with a box full of instruments in her hand. Bring your weapons, we're off. As the circular blades on both sides turned, the transport plane slowly floated up and flew towards the distant jungle. Holding an unknown model of gun in his hand, Zuemo sat by the open door of the transport plane, looking at the mountain jungle under his feet. As far as his eyes could see, there was a green ocean. Under the rising sun, the steaming mist slowly dissipated, and a beautiful picture came into his sight. Wow, it's so beautiful, Norm exclaimed on the side. Zuemo and Jack all nodded in agreement. This place is quite suitable for retirement. He sighed. Don't be confused by this beautiful scenery. This jungle is much more dangerous than you think. Any monster can take your life. Hearing Zuemo's words, Professor Grace warned. After getting off the plane, don't shoot without my order. She looked at Zuemo and Jack and said point among the 4 avatars. Only the 2 of them held weapons. The team should have 3 biological experts, including Jack's twin brother Tommy and Zuemo, a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, as security. But Jack, who replaced Tommy, obviously could not inherit his knowledge. This led to the situation that the team had 2 experts and 2 security forces. Half an hour later, the transport plane slowly landed in an area. Little guys, put on your equipment. The next day will depend on us. Grace put on her backpack, shouted, and then jumped down. The other 3 followed closely. Judy, turn off the engine. We will stay here for a while. Walking to the glass of the cockpit, Grace shouted loudly inside. She had to shout louder. The propellers of the transport plane were located on both sides of the cabin door. Under the huge noise, the sound was low and the others could not hear it at all. In the cabin, Judy, wearing a transparent mask on his face, nodded. The transport plane's engine went silent. After jumping down from the cabin, Zuemo looked around. He didn't see any difference between the surrounding scenery and the location of the space capsule. Let's go, Professor. Grace shouted as she saw the 3 people still looking around, and then led the way into the depths of the forest. Zuemo followed them directly. As far as he knew, the rare minerals in this world were mainly concentrated under the huge home tree, where the heroine was, and the soul tree that connected the entire planet. And if you want to find them, it is undoubtedly faster to go with Jack. After all, the coverage range of his mental power is only about 50 meters now. It is nothing but a fool's dream to find these 2 places on such a large planet. And if they are with Jack and meet the heroine Etany, she is likely to take them to the gathering place. The 4 of them identified a direction and explored slowly. Every time they walked a certain distance, Grace and Gnome would stop and extract samples of some plants from the ground. Every time at this time, Zuemo and Jack were alert to the surrounding environment. According to the original plot, the group would meet the Death Beast and get separated. The Death Beast looks similar to the Black Panther, but it is more than 10 times larger. Its height alone is about 3 meters, and its length is 7 or 8 meters. Not to mention humans. Even an avatar holding a gun would have to rely on luck to survive if they encounter such a monster alone. But Zuemo was not worried at all. Although in terms of strength, he is only about twice that of the avatar now. But his mental power is close to the peak of advanced warriors, reaching more than 10 tons. The weight of this avatar's body is only 200 or 300 kilograms, and it is not difficult to fly with mental power at the very least. With his 36 times power amplitude, even with the strength of this body, it is not enough to exert it, but reaching 7 or 8 times is not a problem. Although the body will be damaged to a certain extent, it should be enough to deal with the Death Beast. Sure enough. A few hours later, Zuemo was teasing a blue monkey hanging on a tree. Grace told him that this kind of monkey is called a lemur. It is much more obedient than the monkeys in Mount Emery. It even picked some fruits from the tree and handed them to Zuemo. Suddenly. Jack in the lush bushes on the other side exclaimed, and then a beast roar came from there. Zuemo's eyes moved, and he ran over there. Chapter 200 AVAN-039's request. When Zuemo arrived, Grace and Gnome were already standing aside. In the open space not far from the 3 people, a death beast was roaring towards them. Run! Grace roared. She turned around and ran in one direction with Gnome. Jack heard this and ran in the opposite direction. Seeing this, the death beast chased after Jack, who was alone. For a moment, no one noticed Zuemo, who appeared on the side. Seeing this, Zuemo leaped onto the tree and chased in the direction of Jack and the death beast. Relying on telekinesis, he hung behind the 2 from beginning to end. When Jack was not in danger of life, he did not act rashly. If he could not meet Neteri of the Navi tribe because of his action, it would no longer be a simple matter to find them in the vast forest. Jack ran in a panic and finally hid in the water to get rid of the pursuit of the death beast. Naturally, he got lost. Not to mention him, even Zuemo, who was following behind, didn't know where they were now. In his opinion, the surrounding scenery was similar. Except for the Navi, who had lived in the jungle for a long time. Only the devil could tell which was which. After wandering around in the jungle for a few hours, it was already dark. Jack was holding a torch in his hand, driving away the poisonous wolves that were surrounding him. Above. Zuemo sat on a treetop a few dozen meters above the ground, watching the scene below. Within his perception range, a female navvy was running towards this side. Naturally, it was the heroine Nitari. Seeing this figure, Zuemo's eyes lit up. After waiting for a day, it finally came. Compared with the Earthlings, the Navi are naturally much more bold. At this time, Nitari only covered the key parts of her chest and lower body, and most of her skin was exposed to the air. The flat and smooth belly, the slender and soft waist, the straight and slender thighs, and the slightly raised tail behind her look strangely beautiful. And the other person's appearance seems to be quite attractive. This is the original avatar. Zuemo looked at this scene and couldn't help but sigh. However, he didn't move, but still stood there leisurely. The two were not in any danger, so there was no need for him to take action. He only needed to follow them, and the two would naturally lead him to the gathering place of the Navi. After finding out the type of ore, he would decide whether to stay in this world or leave directly. After the two people below dealt with the poisonous wolf, Nitari turned around and left, and Jack chased after her with a thick face. Zuemo slowly hung behind the two. Relying on telekinesis, even Nitari, a senior hunter, didn't notice that he was following behind. Half an hour later, Zuemo followed the two and came to the branches of a giant tree. The giant tree was several hundred meters high, and a single branch was more than 1 meter thick in diameter. Looking along the way, Zuemo was shocked by the scenery in the jungle at night. The plants in the jungle emitted various colors of light, making the night extremely bright. Walking in it was like being in a fairy tale world. He secretly made up his mind. Even if there was no ore he needed here, he would return to this world after his strength improved and put Pandora into the Star Tower. This place is simply a holiday resort. Below. Jack and Nitari had stopped on the treetops and were arguing about something. It seemed that Nitari was driving Jack away. Zuemo, who had watched the original drama, knew that Nitari's sister died at the hands of the Earthlings, and she had no good feelings towards the Earthlings. The reason why she saved him was because Grace, an Earthling, had taught them knowledge. But Jack was obviously not stupid. He had just tried it. As an Earthling, he stayed alone in this primitive jungle at night, and the possibility of survival was almost zero. How could he not grab this only life-saving straw? Zuemo looked at the scene on the ground boredly. At this time, a small thing similar to a jellyfish with white light slowly floated on Zuemo's shoulder. Is this the seed of the soul tree? As the seed fell on Zuemo's body, a woman's voice sounded in Zuemo's mind. But, child. Hearing this intermittent voice, Zuemo was stunned. You can say so. The woman's voice sounded in his mind again. More jellyfish-like seeds fell on him and soon wrapped his whole body. At the same time, the voice in his mind became smoother. The natives on the planet do call me that. To be precise, I'm the product of the fusion of all consciousness on the planet, or you can call me the will of the planet. Hearing this, Zuemo's face showed a look of realization. As far as he knew, all creatures on Earth could connect to the soul tree, and after death, these creatures would upload their consciousness to the soul tree network. It was not wrong to call it the will of the planet. So, what do you mean by contacting me? I want you to save this planet and drive out those sky people. The woman's voice sounded in Zuemo's mind. You seem to think too highly of me. How can I drive them out by myself? At this point, Zuemo smiled again. Besides, you should know that I'm also a sky person. Why should I help you and stand on the opposite side of my own kind? After listening to Zuemo's words, Ava was not angry. I can feel that you are not in the same group with them. Your mental power is not at the same level as this. It is impossible that you are the same species, and you are following behind the two of them, obviously with some plan. You can tell me your request. If you can do it, I will definitely satisfy you. At this point, the voice paused and then spoke again. As for resisting those sky people, the creatures on this planet will naturally stand on your side. After listening to Zuemo, his eyes lit up. With Ava controlling the entire planetary network, it would be very easy for him to know all the types of metals on the planet. Thinking of this, He did not hesitate. He answered directly. I need to know what metals are on this planet. Metals, of course. As soon as the voice fell, countless information with pictures poured into Zuemo's mind. This information is all about the types of ores on Pandora. Because there are too many types of ores, Ava can only pass on the pictures and basic characteristics of these ores to him. Next, Zuemo closed his eyes and browsed the types of these ores. Ava's seeds are almost like a death-free gold medal on this planet. There is no need to worry about animals disturbing him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.